Close the doors of your mind. Close the gates of your mind. Close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your tent, your mishkan, your mikdash, your ohel. And bring your mind to center. Bring your body to center. Bring your mind to balance within yourself, within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 melanin centers, within your 12 manners of fruit. With your yod and your kaf, which controls your body and what you do with your yod and your kaf and your hands and your feet, your regal and where you go. When you sit in the house, walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. For you use your hands and your feet more than you use everything else in your body. For these are all the things that can get dirty. Whether you have fingerprints that have, say, sins in your life, or you've got fingerprints in other people's life and you've manipulated and controlled and you did things in your life with your other yod and your kaf and your mouth and your tongue or your feet. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day that Yahuwah has given to us as another shabath, that we may cease from our labors, our works, and our selfish self, and the things we want to do and the gain that we want to attain in this life through our own selfish ambitions. We may put these things aside and through our own self and our own ways and our own thoughts, and may ride upon the high places, upon the wings of the wind, that we may feed us with our akla, the abraku kanaf halak ruah. We may ride upon the high places, that Yahuwah may be our stronghold, that he may be our protection, that he may be our comfort. For he sends the comforter, even as it leads and guides us into all truth and shows the things to come, even as it shows us our sins, even as the things that we don't know within ourselves. For today we acknowledge the one who made out the hard and the heart of the earth, all the rivers and streams, the one who formed and shaped all creatures of the earth, the one who gives life and understanding to all the Mermes and the God and the Behemoth and the oath, the one who allows to let the birds fly, the one who allows the Tahanim to ride and to swim into the oceans and the streams and the rivers, the one who gives life and understanding to both male and females, the Karnakabar, and enlightened thought and enlightened beings, as enlightened thought and enlightened beings, as a Ish is in a Zara to Yahuwah in the gun, and the Isha is an Zara to the Ish in the gun, that all may be in alignment with Yahuwah himself, and not to say transgress his debar in the garden. For that's all Satan and his wants the originals to do. Right? So as we move forward in the fear of Yahuwah, because there's no one greater than those who fear Yahuwah. Right? So this is the book of Job, Ayub. This is the book of Ayub, Job. The book of Job, Ayub, chapter 32. Job chapter 32 and verse 6. Ayub, Job chapter 32 and verse 6. It says, and Eliyahu, the son of Barakal, the Buzite, answered and said, I am young in years, and you are aged. Therefore, I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. He said, I was timid. Why? Why was he timid? I said, let days speak. Because you look at older people, how you say the aged men, the gray hair. He said, I let the days speak. But guess what he said? Let days speak, right? And it says, and many years teach wisdom, hakma. So that's what you're supposed to do. The aged men are supposed to have hakma on the inside. They're supposed to be stronger than 10 rulers who are in the city. Wisdom is supposed to be stronger than 10 rulers. It's supposed to persuade 10 rulers if they're evil, if they raw. It's supposed to persuade them to stop doing raw, to stop slandering, to stop gossiping, to stop lying, to stop swindling and extorting. Aged men are supposed to be able to say these things to get people to stop, but the aged men are now doing the very things the aged men are supposed to stop people from doing. So how is that even possible in 2026 AD for an aged man who has swindled and extorted and lied and gossiped and slandered and created rumors and all these things about people, committed adultery and lied, right? And created all these things for the younger man to say, you know what, I'm real timid on my opinion though. Even though all the things that you have done, I'm not going to say anything. Right? But it says, I said, let days speak and many years teach Hakma, but it is the Ruach in man, Adam. It's the Ruach in Anashim. It's the Ruach in Isha. It is the Ruach, the Neshama of the Shadi, the Almighty, that makes him understand. So how are you going to understand anything if the Ruach ain't inside of you? And then how are you going to be an aged man who's supposed to teach Hakma out of wisdom out of their mouth, but you're doing the very things that Yahuwah told human beings not to do. And then you want to profess yourself to be wise. It is not the old who are wise. So now he just canceled you out. See, you know how we think, man, the aged are wise. The old are wise. She said most of the aged today have come from things that you would never thought that would be teachers in Yasharal at all. Matter of fact, not even for the family of Abraham, never. Even Noach, never, right? Even from Adam, never, right? So you think about that. The qualifications you will never have been. You would have never been established had this world not be as wicked as it is. That's just the truth, right? But it says, it is not the old who are wise, nor the aged who understand what is right. So the neshama, the ruach, understands what's right and understands. This is why the young man was like, I would say let days speak, but he said it's not even the old who are wise, right? This is First Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 17. Actually, yeah. 1 Timothy chapter 4. I think it's 2 Timothy chapter 4. If I recall. Yeah. 1 Timothy chapter 4. Yeah, 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 10. Go to verse 10. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and 10. Actually, verse 9. Now concerning brotherly love, you have no need that anyone writes to you. Right? So you need somebody to write to you to love somebody. Aha, please write this to me. Send me a letter. Guess what it says? But you know what people do? You write a letter saying you need to love somebody. But you know what they do? They go slander, gossip, and lie. And they 10 exits down the road, on the exits down the highway from your place you go to, from your building. And the person you slandering and gossiping about, he believe in Yahuwah too, and Yahushua. And you be like, man, what kind of love is that? You right down the street. But it says, now concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by Elohim. So to love one another. So if you ain't loving nobody, ahaba, and we ain't just talking about correction. If you ain't loving nobody, you ain't been taught by Yahuwah. So if you slander, gossip, lie, create false accusations, lie, slander on YouTube, do all these things, male and female, then one has never been taught by Yahuwah. You've been taught by Satan. You were taught by the devil, and then you know what they do? Then you get money with it. And you get fame. You get well known for it. And then it says, for that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers throughout Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more. So that means abounding more and more. That's be fruitful and multiply. Just like Adam and Kua in the garden. You're supposed to abound more and more in ahaba. But guess what it says? And aspire to live quietly. Oh, okay. Why would he say that? He said aspire to live quietly. Why would he say that? Because you're following an example of somebody, a good manager. Right? This is the book of Bereshit, chapter 25, Genesis chapter 25, verse 24. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 25 and 24. Management 201. Bereshit 25, 24. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were 2 twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Asu. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Asu's heel. Now he came out holding Asu's heel. And guess what he did? So his name was called Yaakov. He said, man, he came holding his heel. And guess what happened? Because you know why he was holding his heel? It's just like anything. When you got wisdom, Hakma, when you wise as a serpent, that's what happens. When you become wise like a serpent, he came out holding his heel. You shall bruise his head, but he gonna bruise your heel. Because he wise like a serpent. Because wisdom make a man's face to shine. But it says, so his name was called Yaakov. And guess what? Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them. Why? Because he said, man, Yaakov's name means deceiver. Of course it does, because he was wise as a serpent. But he was harmless like a dove. He was harmless like a dove. That's what Yahushua told us to be. Wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. But it says Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them. And when the boys grew up, Ayshr was a skillful hunter. Man, he was skillful, boy. He knew how to hunt them animals, man. He knew how to go kill. He knew how to steal, and he knew how to destroy. Because you know you got to steal a lamb from a mother in order to kill it. You know you got to steal a roe from another animal to take it. You know when you take a bear cub and you eat it, you know you got to take it from its mother. Most people say, yeah, that's what you got to do. You know how to steal, kill, and destroy. A man of the field, because that's what he said, man, you a man of the field. So you know how to hunt. It can be good or evil, right? Because adulterous women hunt for the precious life. But then you can also be in a hunt for souls, even to save their life. But it says, while Yaakov was a quiet man. Now I see why he told us to live quietly. He was a quiet man. Dwelling in tents. You know why he lived quietly and dwelling in tents? Because he had love, ahab. And he abounded more and more in love. Why do you think people say, man, why are you cold? Why are you so loving, man? I don't understand. Man, go all the way to Laban's house, and now he just love these women like it ain't nothing else. Like why he in love with these people? Why he got so much love in his heart while he there with Laban? For some reason. Laban doing wrong, he just be like trying to work it out. Women be arguing, he just be like, man, am I in Elohim's seed? He got all this love. He said for the love he had for her. That's the only thing that kept him there. So why he got all this ahab in his heart? Because that's what how Yahuwah made him. And that's how he was taught by Elohim. There's a difference between not being taught by Elohim and there's a difference between not being taught by Elohim. And Yaakov was a quiet man dwelling in tents. And Yitzhak loved Esau because he ate his game. But Rebekah loved Yaakov. You notice the feminine nature gonna love somebody who loves, right? And you see Esau, he followed like, man, I love the way you hunt, man. I like it when you go out in that field. I like the way you do that because that's that masculine side of a human being. We got a masculine nature. That's the masculine side. But then you have the feminine side, which is the feminine nature. That's why Yaakov was the way he was. But they said, man, Yaakov was weak. Well, we'll see. Right, 1 Timothy, that's what you call a good manager. 1 Timothy 4 and 12. 1 Timothy 4 and 12. Actually, what was that? Was that 4 and 17? 4 and 11. Command and teach these things. 4 and 11. Let no one despise your youth, for your youth. Why would he say that? We just read it in the book of Job, Aydah. 1 Timothy 4 and 11. Command and teach these things. Let no one despise you for your youth. He said, why would he do that? But set the believers an example in speech and in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Huh? Because you're following the example of your fathers. Because your code was that way. This is even before his name was changed to Yasharal. And he said, I want my name changed. Well, understand something. In conduct, in ahab, in amunah, and purity. Until I come, devote yourselves to public readings of the scriptures, to exhortations, to teachings. Why? Do not neglect the gift you have, which was given you by prophecy, when the council of the elders laid their hands on you. Right? You're going over to. There's a reason for all of this, right? There is a reason for all of this, right? There is a reason. There is a reason. right, skipping over to going back to verse 3. Actually going to verse 6. Going to verse 6, 4 and 6. If you put these things before the brothers, you will be a good servant of the Mashiach Yahushua, being trained in the word of Amunah and of good doctrine that you have followed. Have nothing to do with irrelevant, silly myths. Rather, train yourself for righteousness. For while bodily training is of some value, right? There's some value to it, because that's what Esau was. But he was good at it too. Ayshr was, man, it had a lot of value. His father loved him too. It has some value, right? Righteousness, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds the promise of the present life and also for the life to come. Now, why do you think he told us to love one another? Why would he tell you that? Because it's a part of it. Because if you can't do this, because these are all of attributes of life eternal. Because bodily exercise, it does profit. It's an outward thing. You're training yourself. You're doing certain things to do what? To show an outward representation of what a man is. It is a outward representation. You know, they got women that right? They go and do all that, but it's an outward representation of something that people desire to be, but it's not actually what you will desire. But he said, let no man despise their youth, because you know what, having an old man, when you start to become wise and understanding, quiet, how you say, loving and all that, most he say, and people start getting jealous and envious. You know what happens? They start to despise you. They start to despise you for your youth, because you're doing it in such a young age, and they ain't never had. They now learning it in the older age, so then now they're getting upset. Because that's what happens. Because then once it starts to happen, then guess what happens? Then you start to feel that jealousy and envy, and then you start to feel that evil on the inside of them, right? Right. Going to 1 Timothy. I'm sorry. Was that 1 Timothy 4? No, was it 1 Timothy 2? 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1. I think I said 4. Right? 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1. 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 1. First of all, then I urge that supplications and prayers and intercessions, thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and for in high positions, that we may lead a peaceable and quiet life. Because Jacob was a quiet man. He was. And he was quiet. His mother loved him too. It says, righteous and dignified in every way. He said, man, his mother loved him too. Now, what do you think type of life Jacob was living? A righteous life. Why do you think Abraham warned Rebecca about Esau? He's like, man, Jacob, you know who need to be over the priesthood? Jacob. Because, you know, Yitzhak was so blind because he's looking at the physical attributes of a person and the physicality of who he was. But Abraham was looking at the inward man and the heart of Jacob. But guess what it says? And dignified in every way. This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of Elohim, our Savior, who desires that all people be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. So, you know, people say, that don't happen. That ain't true. He desires that all people shall be saved. You know what people say? That ain't gonna happen. You trying to save that person, right? But in actuality, there's a lot of things that people don't know. And that's the part of it. This is Yirmiyahu. This is Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah. It's 22, 29. But that's the whole point of it, right? That's the whole point. What was that? Yeah. This book of Yeshayahu. Go to the book of Yeshayahu. Chapter 56 and verse 6. Yeshayahu chapter 56 and verse 6. Isaiah chapter 56 and verse 6. And the foreigners who join themselves to Yahuwah to minister to him, to love the name of Yahuwah, and to be his servants, everyone who keeps the Shabbat and does not profane it. That's the whole point. And holds fast to my covenant. The foreigners who holds fast to my covenant. So where do people get this hateful, strenuous teaching of Satan from? Because you know where they get it from? They get it from, they weren't taught by Elohim. How you say it? That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. They wasn't taught by Yahuwah. They weren't taught by Elohim. That's why. That's why they can't live a quiet and peaceful life. They were taught by the Satan. And holds fast my covenant. These I will bring to my Qahalath mountain. You think he gonna bring them? You know, people say he gonna bring them. No, he not. I wasn't wanting them. Granted, he said I'm an assistant man. He said assistant of assistant managers, right? I'm not the manager, right? I'm not. He said I'm not them. So I already know what he don't want them. These I will bring in my Qahalath mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. He said joyful. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. Now you see why Jacob's offerings were accepted. Now you see why Abel's offerings were accepted. Because they had quiet and loving hearts. They had a quiet and loving heart. And they knew how to live that way, like Jacob. It was a type of behavior that people had. And make them joyful in the house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and the sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. So that means everybody. So all the things that people have said is a lie. And then he said, if you continue to believe it, you are deceived. And then once you become deceived, you're only deceiving yourself after you hear the truth, right? That's the whole point. For all peoples, Yahuwah Elohim, who gathers the outcasts of Yasharal, declares, I will gather yet others to him besides those already gathered. And all you beasts of the field, come and to devour all the beasts in the forest. His watchmen are blind. They are all without knowledge. They are all silent dogs that cannot bark, dreaming, lying down, loving to slumber. The dogs have a mighty appetite, man. They love to eat. They never have enough. He said, it doesn't matter how much I say. It don't matter. But they are shepherds, Ra'ah, Niku, it doesn't matter, who have no understanding. They have all turned to their own way. They have not submitted themselves to the righteousness of Yahuwah. Each to his own gain, one and all. Because that's the whole point. That's how you know. That's how you know. Going back to First Timothy, or 2 Timothy, was it 2 Timothy? 2 Timothy. That's the whole point. Oh, 1 Timothy 2? Yeah, 1 Timothy 2. 1 Timothy chapter 2, and verse 10. Actually, no. 1 Timothy what? Where was that? 2 and 1. Yeah. 1 Timothy 2 and 1. First of all, I urge supplications and prayers and intercession and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceable and quiet life, righteous and dignified in every way. These are all a part of it. This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of Elohim, our Savior, who desires that all people be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. So what's the knowledge of the truth? Right? Because people say everybody should come to it. Everybody should understand it. Because if everybody don't understand all the truth, why is this? This is Bereshit chapter 6 and verse 1. Actually, Bereshit chapter 6 and verse 5. Bereshit chapter 6 and verse 5. Bereshit chapter 6 and verse 5. And Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of man, Adam, was great in the earth, and that every intention and thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And Yahuwah regretted that he had made Adam man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. This is why he wants all people to be saved. This is why he wants all people to have the knowledge of the truth. So Yahuwah Elohim I will blot out Adam, whom I have created on the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the Shamaim, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Nuach found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. You know why Nuach found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah? Because of his behavior. Because of his behavior. And how he lived. That's why he found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. Right? Because that's the whole point of it. Because if once you understand that, once you put that in your head, then you'll understand it. Going to 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse. Going back to 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and 12. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and 12. Going 4 and 10. Sorry, going back there. 1 Timothy 4 and 10. We're going to get out of here. 4 and 10. Actually, 4 and 9. Now concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by Elohim to love one another. For that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers throughout all Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more, and to aspire to live quietly. Because that's what you're supposed to do. Just like your code was. And to mind your own affairs, the household affairs, because thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, a wife, thy menservant, maidservant, ox, donkey, Tesla, house, corporation, LLC. Thou shalt not covet anything that's your neighbor's. Right? Why? Mind your own affairs. You know what happens when you do that? That means you're going to be fruitful and multiply yourself. You're not going to be focusing on other people's stuff and what they're doing in their affairs, their household affairs. Man, they having some marriage problems. Let me focus on theirs. They're having some difficulties in their life. Right? You're so focused on their household affairs, their own affairs, your stuff. When you do that, you will be fruitful and multiply. You will have that same understanding. But when you start focusing on other people's stuff, you ain't living quietly, you're not going to be like your code. I guarantee you. What happens with your code? Anywhere he went, anything he touched was gold. But when you start focusing on other people's stuff, I promise you, right, you're not going to get nowhere. That's a reason why a lot of people, like he said, when you coming up, you worked hard, and I wasn't really paying. You said you don't even paying attention to everything. Everybody, y'all only focus on me, focus on what I had to do. And why? Because once you focus on what you're doing, you're not really focusing on what other people doing. Right? That's why a lot of people ain't never accomplished a lot. What things they probably had an opportunity to do, but they never got a chance to accomplish it because they were focused on not on their own affairs. When you focus on you, then you'll prosper. In your mind, your understanding will increase, all that. And to the work with your hands. What you gonna do in your yard and your car? Oh, let me guess. You're doing your yard and your car for other people's stuff. And you wondering like, man, I don't have nothing. Because you doing yard and car with other people's stuff. That's what happens. And we instruct, as we instructed you, so that you may walk properly before outsiders. Because you're supposed to show something with your yard and your car. And be dependent on no one. And be dependent on no one. And be dependent on no one. Those are good managers. That's what it says. These are good managers. That's a good manager. He said, even when you get in a hard time, he said, you still gotta be a good manager. It doesn't matter. You gotta be a good manager of the little bit you got. There's a reason why, man, I know how to be hungry, I know how to be full, I know how to be abased, I know how to abound more, I know how not to have nothing. You know why? Because Yahuwah is trying to show you, little that a righteous man hath is greater than all the treasure of the wicked. And then he says, oh, when you get riches, when your riches increase, rejoice. But when they don't, consider. Think about other things. Think about other parts of the bar that people don't want to think about. You know, when you get your funds, you don't want to think about other stuff. Man, little that a righteous man hath is more than treasures of the wicked. That's the only reason he do it to you. So you go back to them scriptures in your head. I don't want a little that a righteous man. Oh, this is just terrible, right? Because you don't want to think about the other scriptures, the lower scriptures, the lower Torah that nobody want to talk about. Because these are the parts that people don't. Man, I don't want to be like Job, right? Because you're gonna have to learn those scriptures. Because I don't want to read that, right? I want to be like Yusuf when he was out of the prison, right? I want to be like David when he ain't sinned, before he ain't sinned, right? You want to be like that. You don't want to learn your lesson when you get taken down. That's the whole point. You know how we are as children. Nobody wants to think about the negative scriptures. If you are rich or poor, if you have a good heart toward Yahuwah, as Tobit said, he said, you always have a cheerful heart. What do you mean, cheerful heart? When I ain't got nothing? Right? You start to complain, you start to say things out of our mouth, and then Yahuwah be looking like, I guess you don't really like the Torah like that. I thought you did. I thought you were like Yahushua. He was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. He didn't complain out one bit. So I'm sure he was thinking about Yuna going 3 days and 3 nights. He was thinking about the third day of creation. Man, he was thinking about a whole bunch of Torah, right? See, that's what you got to focus on, right? Don't focus on other people's affairs. Looking around, and then you get, man, look at how they prosper, and they must be evil, right? Because you done lost a little bit, and now you're like, oh man, but you got to think about those low scriptures, the lower level, when you're in your lowest. How you gonna get sharpened in those low scriptures, the ones that people don't want to deal with? How you gonna get sharpened in your mind? You have to go through that. That's too much. I'm talking more. But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope, right? So they going to sleep in the grave and they got no hope. You know how people say, man, they already there. No, they sleeping like you. Everybody gonna go. You gonna leave here. You gonna go to another world, and you gonna be in what they call sleep. It means you're in a tardema. You're in a dreamlike state. You're in like another world, like Adam was when he called a tardema to go upon him. And then Yahuwah woke him up. He said, this is not bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He shall be called Ayshr. How you think you're going to wake up? Just like Adam was formed from the dust of the ground. And Yahuwah breathed his nostrils, the Shama, the Ruach, and he became a living soul. How you think? Where do you think you're going to? For dust thou art, and dust thou shalt return. And then you got to hope Yahuwah rake you over again and bring you back to life in the first resurrection, not the second. You know how you make my son Adam first. I saw Adam. Then he make you next. You don't want that to happen. He make you next. You want to be the first resurrection. You don't want to be the next person after that. Right? But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do, who have no hope. For since we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so through Yahushua, Elohim will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. He's going to bring with you, right? For this we declare to you, by a word from Yahuwah, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of Yahuwah, will not precede those who have fallen asleep. He said, and you know what? For that Yahuwah himself will descend from Shamayim with a cry of command, with the voice of an Malachi, a Malachi, right? And with the sound of the Turah of Elohim. So you need Yahushua, right? You need Yahuwah, you need Yahushua, you need the what? You need to hear from Shamayim, the cry and the command. You need to understand the voice of a Malachi. And you need to understand what a Turah is. You're going to need to know it. These are all a part of your culture that you died inside of. that you went to sleep inside of. And the dead of Mashiach will rise first. Why do you think Yahushua said, seek ye first the Malkuth, and all these things will be added to you? Right, going to the book of, this is Apocalypse of Saphanya, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 7, verse 1. Pseudepigrapha, volume 1, Apocalypse of Saphanya, chapter 7, and verse 1. Then I looked, and I saw with him a manuscript in his hand, and he began to unroll it. Now after he spread it out, I read it in my own language. He read it in what? He read it in his own language, his own Lashon. He said he read it in his own language. And I found that all my sins which I had done were written in it. And he read it in his own language. You know, you say, you ain't gonna have it in your language. You say, it doesn't matter what language you got. Why do you think he said, I'd rather that all people should be saved? So Yahuwah gonna write that thing, and he gonna write it in Espanol. He gonna write it in the slave language, the Spanish language, the slave language, even in the ancestor language that people died in when they got extinct in Florida or in these other countries when they came and took over. That language they want you to know, he gonna have it in Trigui, he gonna have it in Triguinu, he gonna have it in Ethiopia, he gonna have it in Akkadian too. Matter of fact, he gonna have it in Swiss German. Wherever these people died, the language they understand, you're going to see all your sins written down. You're going to have all the languages. And you're going to look in that book, you're like, man, how come I can see it, understand it in my language? The wonderful works of Yahuwah and my sins. He's going to have everything in there. Man, he's going to have it in Bantu language. He's going to have it in the Maasai language. He's going to have it in the language you can't understand. Man, he's going to have it in the Greenland language, the tribes in the tribes in Greenland. Man, he's going to have all the languages. So please don't be thinking like, I'm going to escape. He said, I'd rather have all people should be saved. Even the Choctaw language, even the Aztec language. Right? He's going to have it in all them languages. Right? All is important. In Arabic too. And it says, and I found that all my sins that I had done were written in it. Those which I had done from my youth, and this is why we talk about, let no man despise your youth. That's what they're going to do. Them older people, man, when they done did all them sins, they going to be like, man, who cares about your sin? Man, you go, see, this is what you need to do. You ain't do that much like that. They're upset with you. Because they know they sins written in that book, and you're going to have to deal with it. It's just really that simple. People saying, the older people, you got to deal with it. You did a lot more sins than the people that's coming up behind you. You got to deal with it. From my youth until this day. So please don't be thinking like, man, all my sins ain't written down. But the whole point is to get Yahuwah to forget those sins. Right? Because if you don't forget it, then he'll be like, man, he ain't forget. And then you know how that is. You finna get a whooping, right? And it says, they were all written upon the manuscript of mine without there being a false word in them. You know how we do them false accusations. We be saying people commit sin and they ain't even do no sins. False accusations, false rumors, false word, false understanding, just me making stuff up. And you will be like, I ain't got no false words in my sin. When I'm my sin book got real sin. Things that you all have done. All your gossips, all your slanders, all your hatred, all your jealousy, all your envy, all your appalling acts done in a lustful manner, all the evil that you've done, all the things you created, it doesn't matter, evil, king, ruler, politician, pastor, teacher, mother, father, sister, brother. He has it all written down inside of a book. How many times you didn't do this and how many times you didn't do that. And it says, and if I did not go to visit a sick man or a widow, I found it written down as a shortcomings upon my manuscript. He said, you ain't even just go visit. And people say, why he say that? Right? Because this is all a part of this book of Romans. People say, he said that's a part of your shortcomings. He said, when we see you sick. Actually, go to the book of James chapter 1. You're cold. James chapter 1. James chapter 1. in verse 26. James chapter 1, verse 26. If anyone thinks he is religious, like you say, you got all that religious stuff, right? You know how people say, that's your mouth. And does not bridle his tongue, that false word. He said, ain't no false words in Yahuwah's book, but you got false accusations and false witness against people. You only got one witness, and you trying to put somebody to death. And does not bridle his tongue, because he that keepeth his tongue keepeth his life. Keep your language. Deceives his heart. So you say that all people ain't supposed to be saved. You deceiving yourself. This person's religion is worthless. And so I told you, everybody's going to keep the commandments in the Testament of Yahushua, right? But he said, your religion is worthless. Everything you're doing is worthless. It's all worthless. Religion that is pure and is undefiled before Elohim, the Father, is this: to visit the orphans and the widows in their afflictions, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. What do you mean unstained? I mean, their behaviors of the world you don't have. Because if you have the behaviors of the world, you're an enemy of Yahuwah. Yahuwah looking at you like, so you're a friend of the world then, right? All right, going back to Safanyah, Apocalypse of Safanyah 7 and 5. It is written down in the shortcomings of the manuscript. It says, if I did not go to visit the sick man or a widow, I found it written down in the shortcomings upon manuscripts. And if I did not visit an orphan, it was found written down in the shortcomings on my manuscript. A day on which I did not fast or pray in the time of prayer, I found it written down as a failing upon the manuscript. Why do you think Shaul said men ought to always pray and never faint? He said pray without ceasing. People say, why he say that? Because he's trying to keep you out of sin. That's why he said that. Because he know the imagination of man's heart is only evil continually. So he's like, okay, pray without ceasing. So therefore your imagination will be only prayer and fasting and loving and visiting people and doing good things to people. Not slander and gossip and using YouTube as a cover. Because that's the whole point of it. He said you got a cloak, but it says not of him, right? A day which I did not fast or pray in the time of prayer, I found written down as a failing of the shortcoming in the manuscript. And a day when I did not turn to the sons of Yasharal, right? Since it is a shortcoming, I found it written down upon the manuscript. What do you mean the sons of Yasharal? He said you didn't turn to the sons of Yasharal. Why would he say that? Right, this is the book of Tahalim, Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 147 and 1. Actually, 147, 18. Tahalim 147 and 15. Tahalim 147 and 15. What do you mean you didn't turn to the sons of Yasharal? We just read to give attendance to readings and exhortations and warnings. Didn't we just read that? Tahalim, Psalms 147 and 15. He sends out his command to the earth, and his word, his debar, runs swiftly. But when he sends it out, it runs swiftly. It's a commandment. He gives snow like wool. He does. He scatters frost like ashes. He hurls down his crystals of ice like crumbs. Who can stand before his cold? Who cold? Your cold? Right? It's the North Pole God, right? No. He sends out his debar and melts them. Because it's like heat. It's just like the fire. He makes his wind blow and the waters flow. His wind and his water. Not yours. The water ain't yours. The sun, Shemas ain't yours. The Yark ain't yours. The Aydah ain't yours. Nothing's yours. He declares his word to your code and his statutes and rules to Yasharal. That's why he said, every time you didn't do it, he says it's written as a shortcoming in your manuscript. When you don't listen to the sons of Yasharal. And guess what? He have not dealt thus with any other nation. So that means any other people. They do not know his rules. Praise Yahuwah. So Safanyah was from what tribe? He said, man, he's from the tribe of Yehuda, right? That's where he was from. Let's read it again. Verse 6 says, Apocalypse of Safanyah, chapter 7 and verse 8. it is a shortcoming. I found it written down in the manuscript. So I threw myself upon my face and prayed before Yahuwah all Shadi. Right? Sorry. In a day when I did not return to the sons of Yasharal, since it is a shortcoming, I found it written down upon my manuscript. So that I threw myself down upon my face and prayed before Yahuwah Shadi. May your mercy reach me. So Safanyah had sinned. He's like, man, look at here. I done did a whole bunch of stuff in my life. You know, people say, I'm great. I know I'm well. Boy, you see me, I'm greater than Safanyah. And you ain't greater than no Safanyah. Nothing even happened to you yet. Right? Safanyah like, man, look at here. This ain't Nabi. We talking about a person who was sent by Yahuwah to do something. This person hit the ground, just like Mashah. Amazingly, everybody hitting the ground except you. He said, I hit the ground every day. I don't even lift my, he said, man, I don't even worry to lift my head up. Because I already know how this works. Or you're going to be like them people standing up when Caleb and Yahusha came back and spawned the land. They started running their mouth. And Mashah and Aaron, what they do? They hit the ground. They're not a fool, right? Y'all can be fools all you want. But they already knew what time it was. Just like everybody else need to understand. Everybody going to bow down eventually. You will hit the ground. He said, I found written down upon my manuscript, so I threw myself upon my face and prayed before Yahuwah Elohim. May your mercy reach me, and may you wipe out my manuscript, because your mercy has come to be in every place and has filled every place. Where's that every place at? We talked about the innermost parts. We talked about the mercy seat with the tent meeting with the 4 tent pegs, with the tent meet with the stairs that go up to the mercy seat, with the cherubim on the left and the right. When Yahuwah sit above that mercy seat, where it's in the innermost parts of the house that Shalom built. Know ye not that your body is the temple of Yahuwah, the Mishkan Mikdash, the hall, the tent of Yahuwah? He said, what? He fills every place with mercy if you want it. You know, people say, he ain't filling you up. You ain't got no Ruach, right? It's up to you to believe that. It is the Ruach that gives understanding, the Neshama. I thought the age would understand this. He said Ruach Marakav al just from the beginning. Just like he made Adam in the beginning, just like he moved upon the face of the waters in the beginning. And he breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, the same Ruach that was in the first day of creation. Right? Because the dead and Mashiach are going to rise first. Those who got the Ruach. Right? Then I arose and stood, and I saw a great Malachi. Okay. So once you hit the ground, and then you hit the ground on your head, and you start praying, and you start realizing that you wicked and you evil, this is a Nabi doing this. He saw something greater than him. So how do you think Daniel was able to see something greater than him? And you ain't hitting the ground. Everybody that saw something great hit the ground. Everyone. I promise you, you are not standing up. That's every person that I've read. And you say, because you know why people don't know this? Because they never read the Torah. My pastor said this, my pastor said that. Not even knowing your pastor is still following the Edmonds Act. Still following the same laws that were passed against the Torah, even against Yeshayahu chapter 4. Same laws that even go against the 7 pillars, that even Dawid wrote about. Even the 7 virgins that follow Asinah. Even the 7 congregations that follow after the very Yahushua himself, that he rebuked and said, repent and do your first works over. So how in the world do you understand this? And he said, man, you don't understand this. You never did. Because these are all a part of the understanding of your Torah. Because all these things are a part of it. And these are laws for other religions, not even the religion of Yasharal. That's why he said, every time I didn't go to the sons of Yasharal, I found it written down in the manuscript as a shortcoming. Because the sons of Yasharal have the understanding of the Torah, because he has never dealt so with any other nation. Because when Jerusalem actually expanded, they created cities of refuge, and those cities of refuge were for people when they were fleeing. That's what they were for. And the more you increase, the more cities of refuge you get. He said, how you know this out of the top of the dome? Because he said, he will teach you something, you don't forget it. I make sure I don't forget it. I make sure I store that thing in my heart, in my mind. And I think on it with reverence. Why? Because that's the whole point. But here we go. We're going to read the rest of this. And it says, then I arose and stood, and I saw a great Malachie before me, saying to me, triumph, prevail, because you have prevailed and have triumphed. He said, what? You have what? He hit the ground. He prayed to Yahuwah where the mercy seat was, inside of him. And he said, you triumphed. And you know what people say? You didn't triumph. You didn't conquer nothing. You ain't got no ruach. You need to be sitting here letting me teach you my lies again, right? And these are all a part of their wicked ways. And people say, man, your life is wicked. And people say, you know how people know people wicked? Because they never repented. Because they never repented. And then people say, man, you ain't repent. You're still the same person. And get what it says. Saying to me, triumph, prevail, because you have prevailed and have triumphed over the accuser. Because that's all they're going to do. They're going to get on YouTube, Instagram, social media, news articles, fake court documents, falsely accuse you, bring it to the court, lie, do restraining orders, do all type of crazy stuff. You ain't do nothing to these people, right? But when you start to hit the ground and realize you a sinner too, and realize you curse people too, and you start to bow down and you realize that, guess what? The deception of the old serpent ain't going to deceive you. Because you know why? Because you understand within yourself what truth is. And you understand it. He said, you will triumph over the accuser. Why? Because the accuser, you know what happens? Where the accuser at? I'm gonna show you how. I'm gonna show you where the accuser is. I'm gonna show you exactly where the accuser is. I'm gonna show you where the accuser at. And people gonna be shocked where the accuser is, right? He said, where the accuser at? This is Revelation Hazon chapter 12, verse 7. Now war arose in Shamayim, Mikal and his Malachie fighting against the dragon. So how you gonna see this? How you think Yochanan was able to see something like this? Let me guess. He was just standing up. I'm sure he hit the ground at one point for the Malachie to show him what this is. You're not gonna be shown nothing if you don't hit the ground. He's fighting against the dragon, Satan. And the dragon and his Malachie fought back. He said, man, they were fighting. The dragon fought back. So please don't be thinking you got some wars in your life, ain't nobody gonna fight back. But was defeated. And there was no longer any place for them in the Shamayims. He said, man, there was no place for them in the Shamayims. You know, in the 7 Shamayims, the Shabbat Shamayims, you know, Pesach, you know, because you know when you don't want to obey it anymore, you don't want to do it anymore, guess where you left from? I don't want to do Pesach anymore. I don't want to do Bakor anymore. I don't want to do Kag Shabor anymore. I don't want to do any Turah anymore. I don't want to do Kafar. I don't want to do Sukkah, right? When you start to lead these things, and the dragon and his Malachim fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer a place in Shamayim in them, because he wanted to take over and try to establish his own righteousness. And Yahuwah was like, no, you not. You ain't submit yourself to the righteousness of Elohim. You know what happens when you try to do your own thing? This is what Yahuwah gonna do. And great dragon was thrown down. That's what happens. That ancient serpent, who is called Satan, the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. So who you think these people are? Who deceiving everybody? Why do you think they cast down? Why do you think they ain't got no place in Shaman? Why do you think they can't understand what you're doing? It has nothing to do with anything. It's because Yahuwah did it. This is why they can't understand it. You can repeat it over and over and over again. Yahuwah put so much hatred in their heart. He put so much in them, and you can't do nothing about it. He said, the deceiver of the whole world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his Malachim were thrown down with him. See, this is why Safanyah hit the ground. He said, man, all my sins written down in the manuscript. Man, let me go appear before Yahuwah. Yahuwah, have mercy on me. I know your mercy seat right there. And I know you sit above the mercy seat. Anything that person said on the throne, but I know you sit above him. And I know you can heal me. You can bring me out of this situation. Man, that's the only way you're going to triumph. You're not going to defeat Satan. I assure you, you're not going to beat him by yourself. It says, and he was thrown down to the earth, and his Malaki were thrown down with him. And he said, you're going to get thrown down too. And I heard a loud voice in Shemaim saying, now the salvation and the power of the kingdom of Elohim and the authority of his Mashiach have come. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down. Now you see why Saf and Yah hit the ground. In order for me to defeat someone who's been thrown down, I have to be thrown down and ask Yahuwah for mercy and compassion for my sins. Why do you think Satan ain't going to do that? Satan not going to do that. That's how you're going to prevail over him, because he inside of you. Because Satan inside of you. Why do you think Safanyah hit the ground? He realized, Satan inside of me. Here I am thinking I could stand. And I need to fall to the ground. Because he realized Satan was inside of him. When you know Satan, you're like, Satan inside of me. What am I doing standing up? I guess I'm trying to fight against Mikal, his Malaki again. I need to hit the ground and bow to him who sits on the throne, because Satan ain't gonna bow to nobody. Matter of fact, you were gonna have to get Malaki by 1,000 of them and just take him down, right? He gonna have to take him down like that. He not gonna do it. You were gonna hit you with 100 blows. That's 100 Malaki, and you still ain't gonna hit the ground. Think about that. He hit you with 100 blows. He said, he said he hit you with 100 of them, and you still won't hit the ground. So what do you think that means? You of Satan. And guess what? And the authority of Mashiach have come, for the accuser of our brothers have been thrown down, who accuse them day and night before our Elohim. Because what do you think he's accusing you at? Inside of you, when you go appear before Yahuwah, and you go to pray, and you ask Yahuwah for mercy, guess who there with you? Satan. Satan right there in the innermost parts of you, and he at that mercy seat too, sitting there with you, and he talking to Yahuwah. Man, why you, this dude, and you bound down, and you praying to Yahuwah, hey, have mercy on me, and then Satan standing up. You see what all these sins, it's written down in your manuscript. Fornication, adultery, slander, gossip, lying, swindling, extortion, robbery. Man, remember that thing he did? Hatred, jealousy, envy, right? Remember that? Spying, man. Hold up, Yahuwah. Yahuwah, have mercy on me, a sinner. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Amazingly, when the two men came into the temple, one a Pharisee and one a tax collector, what did the tax collector say? He said, I can't even lift my head up. Have mercy on me, a sinner. But the one standing straight up, I fast 3 times a week. I give alms of all that I have. I do all these things, and guess what he said? I'm glad I'm not like this tax collector. That's Satan right there. That's Satan. That's the devil, Satan. You just don't know it, because he accusing you, and he not hitting the ground. That is the devil. Let me read that, because people be thinking that's not Satan. That's the devil, man. Y'all have no idea. Right? People have no idea. That's Satan. That's Satan. That is the Satan, man. People have no idea. That's why it's dangerous. That's why it's dangerous. People say, this is why it's dangerous to, if you think one is above another person, this is why it's dangerous. Luke Oriyah 18 and 19. Luke 18:19. Luke 8, I didn't even get to it, man. I still got 18:19. He also told this parable by some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous. Everybody think that. He said, I used to think that too. Boy, man, you couldn't tell me, boy. When you get that King James Version book, boy, I was righteous and you don't know what. You say, I could go through that book, turn the pages and know where everything at. Right? I knew all that. He said, you know all that. But he said, when you start learning that Ivri Lashon, you start learning other things, you start filling your heart and your mind, you put more input in, you start to realize, man, I'm evil. And once you realize that, that's what Saf and Yah did. This ain't Nabi hitting the ground. So how you gonna say you gonna get in? He says, and treated others with contempt. That's what happens. You think you more righteous than somebody else, and you treated others with contempt, and then you want other people to forgive you, but all they see is that same behavior that you had before all of this new life you got, and now you're treating others with contempt now. 2 men went into the temple to pray. They went to just like you pray in your innermost part of yourself, know ye not that your body is the temple of Yahuwah? 2 of them went into the temple to pray. So everybody, they say, man, I went into the temple, I prayed, and he prayed. Right? One a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus, Allahim, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. You know how it is. We all think that. He said, I ain't never did that. I ain't never did that. I ain't never did that. I'm a virgin, man. I ain't never worshiped no idols. And he said, you worship singers who worship idols. He said, you worship them, you praise them, right? You give them all the praise and the kabod every day, right? And you be like, I'm so righteous. I'm a virgin. Man, you just like Astronaut before she repented. What he used to do? He put his hand out. He said, man, I ain't touching, I ain't kissing in your face. It's unlawful for me to even kiss the face of an idol worshiper. He said, man, I ain't touching you. Right? He says, or even like this tax collector, I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. You know how we do. Boy, I'm a good giver. I have $1 million, billion, quintillion dollars, right? $1 million, right? But the tax collector standing afar off, right? He said he wasn't even in there. He like, man, look at here. I'm way over here. Because you know the mercy seat right there, the cherubim with the mercy seat, and Yahuwah sit above the mercy seat, and you can get right there in front of the throne. I'm talking about right there in front. I'm talking about right there. You can see it. You can look up, see all the things that he made it. Pure gold. You can look at it. He said, man, I ain't even gonna look at that thing. He said, man, he was still at the door. He like, man, I don't even know if I want to come in here. But the tax collector standing afar off would not even lift up his eyes to Shamayim, but beat his breast, saying, Allahim, be merciful to me, a sinner. That's what Safanyah did. And he said, you triumphed over the accuser, this tax collector, who was masquerading as somebody righteous, but he really Satan in disguise. You just didn't know it. Because he was like a molecule light. What were the Pharisees? Like the molecule light. They were pretending to be something they're not. But the end will be according to their deeds. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled. He said, eventually you will. But the one who humbles himself will be exalted. It says, then I arose, going back to popular Safanyah 1:9. Then I arose and stood, and I saw a great Malachim before me, saying to me, triumph, prevail, because you have prevailed and have triumphed over the accuser. And you have come up from Hades and the abyss. I told you we in hell. You can come out of Sheol. So that means Safanyah was in hell. He said, what was Safanyah? In Tartarus? That man was in the demon world. He was like, you came out of Sheol. You came out of Hades. You know, Satan knew you going to stay in Hades. You going to Hades. But he said, man, I hit the ground. I humble my Anu, Anas, Safal. I hit the ground. And you know what happened after that? He said, you have come up from Hades. See, I told you can get out of hell. All you got to do is confess your sins and say, Yahuwah, have mercy on me. The Elohim who's in between the mercy, in between the cherubim who sits above the mercy seat. That's the only way you're going to get mercy. In the innermost parts of yourself. That's the only way. You have to realize. You have to realize this. And guess what? And he began to unroll it. Actually, he says, you will now cross over the crossing place. Say what? That's the only way you're going to do what? All right, so this is the book of Exodus. This is the book of Exodus. He said, man, how you cross over? People don't understand this, right? Let me guess. It's the book of Exodus, Shemuth. People say, what this all about? It's all about the same thing. You know how people say, I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. This book of Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14 and verse 23. Exodus chapter 14, verse 23. Exodus chapter 14 and verse 21. Exodus chapter 14, verse 21. Then Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, the Yam, and Yahuwah drove the sea back by a strong east wind all the night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Yasharal went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, waters being a wall to them on the right and on the left. Right? And guess what happened? And the Egyptians pursued and went after them in the midst of the sea. There go your accuser. There he go. The accuser coming. He pursuing. He ain't stopping. He know he won't. He lying. And all Pharaoh's horses and his chariots and his horsemen. And in the morning, watch the Yahuwah. And in the morning, in the Bakar, watched Yahuwah in the pillar of the fire, and the cloud looked down on the Mizraim forces, and threw the Mizraim forces into panic. Why? Clogging their chariot wheels, so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee before Yasharal." Now you see why it's a shortcoming. He said, man, why it's a shortcoming? He said, every time I never went before Yasharal, it was always a shortcoming written down in my manuscript. For the Yahuwah fights for them against Mizraim. This man went more justified to his house rather than the other. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand over the sea, and the water may come back upon the Mizraim, and upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. So Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea in the Yam, and returned to his normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, Yahuwah threw the Mizraim in the midst of the sea. And Yahuwah returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen for all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. And no one remained, but the people of Yasharal walked on dry ground through the sea, and the waters being a wall to them on the right and on the left. Thus, Yahuwah saved Yasharal that day from the hand of Mizraim, and Yasharal saw Mizraim dead on the sea shore. And Yasharal saw a great power from Yahuwah used against Mizraim. So the people feared, and they believed in Yahuwah and his servant Moshe. Why? Because Yahuwah allowed you to cross over the crossing place. He allowed you to go over to the other side. Why? Because once you understand, he's like, man, he allowed me to cross over. Why? Because if you don't cross over, what happens to you? This is the book of Joshua. This is the book of Joshua. Actually, go to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 27. 27 and 3. Deuteronomy 27 and 3. And ye shall write on them all the words of this law, Torah, when you cross over to enter the land that Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. We just talked about the people that Yahuwah want there. In the book of Yeshayahu 56. He said, a land flowing with milk and honey, you know how I say milk and honey, right? As Yahuwah Elohim has promised, going to be fruitful and multiply. And when he had crossed over Yarden, you shall set up these stones concerning which I commanded you today on Mount Ebal. And you shall plaster them with plaster. And there you shall build an altar to Yahuwah your Elohim, an altar of stones. And it says, and you shall wield no iron tool on them. And you shall build an altar to Yahuwah your Elohim of uncut stones. And you shall offer burnt offerings to it to Yahuwah your Elohim, and peace offerings, right? Because it's all a part of it. Right, so, let me get out of And it says, going to back to Safinian, Apocalypse of Safinian. And again he brought another manuscript which was written by hand, and he began to unroll it, and I read it, and I found it written in my own language. And the manuscript would be followed by a prayer, possibly a prayer of thanksgiving, and a pronouncement of the triumph by a great Malachi, and would be followed by preparations for crossing over the river in a journey out of Hades. He said, what's going on? Right? This is all a part of it. And people say, no, it ain't no part of it. Yes, it is. All right, this book of Joshua, chapter 5. Joshua chapter 5 and verse 1. And as soon, Yahushua chapter 5 verse 1. And as soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that Yahuwah had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Yasharal until they had crossed over, their hearts melted. Man, them people gone. What you doing? He said, we don't cross over. We don't triumph, right? He said, we triumphed with a great Malachi, and we crossed over the river in a journey out of Hades. We trying to get out of hell. He said, well, why do you think you bow down to the ground? How you going to get out of Sheol? You got to hit the ground. Their hearts melted, and there was no longer any ruach in them because of the people of Yasharal. Why? Because we don't get out of Hades, and you still in Hades. You still in Sheol. We don't get out of Sheol. Why are you trying to bring us back to Sheol? He say, drag, you know that movie they got, Drag Me to Hell? Why do you think, how they going to drag you to Sheol? I'm not like this tax collector. I fast 3 times a week. I give tithes of all that I had. That's not going to drag you to Sheol. They're going to drag you to Sheol because you think that you somebody, and you think that you actually did a lot of righteous works. You think that you're greater than somebody else. That's how you're gonna drag you back to Sheol, right? That's the whole point, right? Going to Joshua chapter 4 and verse 19. Yahushua chapter 4 verse 19. And the people came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped at Gilgal, at the east of Jericho, right? And those 12 stones which they took out of Jordan, Yahushua set up on Gilgal. And he said to the people of Yasharal, when your children ask their fathers in the times to come, what do these stones mean? Then you shall let the children of Yasharal know Yasharal passed over this Jordan on dry ground. Now you see why. He said, every time I didn't go to the Yasharal, it was a shortcoming. In the manuscript, for Yahuwah your Elohim dried up the waters of Jordan for you until you passed over, as Yahuwah your Elohim did in the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over. And guess what happened? So that all the people of the earth may know that the hand of Yahuwah is mighty, and that you may fear the Yahuwah your Elohim forever. Now you see why. Who feared Yahuwah? Yusuf. Who fear Yahuwah? The Abri women with the Mizraim women. Who fear? These people fear. And when you hit the ground, you realize how evil you are. Yahuwah like, you fear me. And you know what happens? You get out of Sheol. How you think you're going to get out of Sheol? The dead of Mashiach going to rise first. How you going to get out of Sheol? How you going to get out? You going to get yourself out. I'm going to go by the power of, these people with these superpowers able to jump out of portals. You going to do that? Nah, that jump, you ain't going to do nothing. You ain't getting out of there. And that's the whole point. But what's the whole point of that? Going to verse 8, 4 and 8. The people of Yasharal did just as Yahushua commanded, and took 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan according to the number of the 12 tribes of Yasharal, just as Yahuwah had told Yahushua. That's why. Because he had not dealt so with any other nation. Right, we're going to get out of here. And it says, going back to Apocalypse of Safinian, and a pronouncement of triumph by the great Malachi would be followed by preparations for crossing over the river in a journey out of Hades. The section that follows begins after the arrival of a boat. And it says, verse 8, chapter 8 says, and he helped me and set me on that boat. Thousands and thousands and myriads of Malachim gave praise before me. And I myself put on an angelic, a Malachi garment. And I saw all of those Malachim praying. Oh, let me get it. They were standing up. I saw the Malachim praying, saying, I myself prayed together with them, and I knew their language. You knew what? I knew their language, which they spoke with me. Now, moreover, my sons, this is the trial, because it is necessary that the good and the evil be weighed in the balance. And that's the whole point. The good and the evil that you do need to be weighed in the balance. Why? Because this is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 1. This is going to make a lot of sense now. And it says, if I speak with tongues of men and of Malachim, you know what he said? I understood their language. I put on the Malachi and I understood their language. But have not love like your code. I am a noisy gong and a clanging cymbal. If I have all prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have all the moon, so as to remove mountains, but if I have not love, I am nothing. Because who he looking at? That man looking at your code. He was a quiet man. He was loving too. And he endured so much stuff. If I give away all that I have and deliver my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing, right? So this is Acts chapter 10. Acts chapter 10 and verse 1. 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 At Caesarea there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion of what was known as the Italian cohort, a devout man who feared Elohim, just like Yusuf and the Abri women. Because you know he was desired that all people be saved. With all his household, who feared Elohim with all his household. That means his ox, his donkey, his nashim, his men servant, his maid servant, his ox, his donkeys, and everything in his house, in his bride. Gave alms generously to the people. He was generous, right? That's what the tax collector did too. He said, I gave alms of all I have. Didn't he say that? But guess what? And prayed continually to Elohim. He said he prayed continually to Elohim. So let me guess, he was standing up. Let's see if he was standing up. And about the 9th hour of the day, what do you mean 9th hour of the day? Who should cry out? 9th hour, right? But he said the last prayer time before the sun goes down. And guess what? He saw clearly in a vision and Malachi of Elohim come in and say to him. So how are Malachi going to come and appear to you? Let me guess, you're going to be standing up? No, he was on the ground. Just like Safin, y'all, just like Musha, just like Daniel, just like Yuko. He was on the ground. And the vision of Malachim vision of Malachim of Elohim come in and say to him, Cornelius, where it came in at. At about the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision and Malach of Elohim come in and say to him, come in where? Come in where? In the where you meet with Yahuwah at, where the mercy seat, the mercy seat with the cherubim, and he sit above the mercy seat. Cornelius, and he stared at him in terror and said, what is it, master? Who cares, you idiot Malachi, right? You dumb Malachi, you don't know nothing, right? That's what he said. He started saying any type of things out of his mouth. No, you don't do that. Because you know why he don't do that? Because they understand. Right? He just starts saying stuff out of his mouth. He says, and he stared at him in terror and said, what is it, master? He called him master. And he said to him, your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before Elohim. So let me guess. He was praying standing up. No. Yahuwah only going to listen to people who justified and why they're doing it. And guess what? Have ascended as memorial to Elohim, and now send men to Jaffa and bring one Simon Kaf, who is called Kaf, who is lodging with Shimon a tanner, whose house is by the Yam, by the sea. You know, by the shoreline. You know, the seashore. When the Malachi spoke to him, he departed, and he called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier from among those who attended him. And having related everything to them, he sent them to Jaffa, right? Because he dwelt by the seashore, in between the shoreline. We ain't talking about some picture on Instagram or Twitter, when you put your feet on the ground. You know how you put your feet in the middle of the seashore, and you put an X photo up, you put an Instagram photo up. You say, man, he told you to come to me. No, that ain't what the Malachi said. You know what he said? He ain't telling you to do that. He said, man, he ain't got nothing to do with no Instagram and social media and YouTube. This thing got everything to do with an unseen world, unseen forces, and other beings in higher dimensional understanding. This stuff ain't got nothing to do with nothing physical, nothing to do with people's arrogance and pride, right? Because Yahuwah hate that stuff. It's everything to do with the true nature of the Ruach and the understanding of the Neshama from the beginning. Right? That's all that's a part of it. Right? So this is Nazarene Ayshr the Shalakim, suggestions of the old serpent. Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent and his cunning suggestions, who deceives you as it were by prudence, because you know that's all it is. He think he knows stuff. He's going to deceive you. As a by sort of reason creeps through your senses, deceiving you a great gain. It's gain for him, unjust gain. It's unjust gain. Therefore, he enunciates in your minds opinions of Elohim of whatsoever kinds, because the Ruach gives understanding, the Neshama. The age don't understand. He said the age is not wise. It's the Ruach and the Neshama that gives understanding. Only that your sins is his comfort. Now you see why Safin hit the ground. Safin like, no way I can stand up. I ain't gonna get comfortable in my sin. Nope, I'm hitting the ground. For his immorality was condemned from the beginning to eat dust. He said, because eventually you're gonna eat the dust. So either you eat the dust now and fight against Satan, because that's the only way you're gonna fight against him, or you just gonna eat it when Yahushua come back here. Because you supposed to be, you like the serpent, you Nakash, right? For that he caused to be again resolved to the dust him who was taken from the dust. That's all he's trying to do. He's trying to keep you down there. Because you got to remember, he's trying to keep you in Sheol. We're trying to get out of Sheol. And we're trying to cross the other side. So you got to get out. Even to the time when your beings will be restored. Because that's when Yahushua going to get you up. Being brought through the fire, as we talked about it. We'll instruct you at another time. But from him, therefore, proceeds all errors and doubts. It's going to come out of his mouth. By which you are driven from a faith, Amunah, and belief in one Elohim. He said he's going to drive you from Amunah in faith in one Elohim, right? So this is Matthew chapter 4 and verse 10. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 10. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 10. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 7. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 7. Yahushua said to him, again it is written, you shall not put Yahuwah to the test, your Elohim to the test. Again Satan took him, the devil, to a very high mountain, and showed him all the mild kingdoms of the world and their kabod. Because when you want to be famous, and you want to have some type of recognition, and you want to be somebody, and guess what? And he said to him, all these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. See, this is the whole point. Yahushua standing up. And he on the top of a mountain. And he telling Yahushua to fall down and worship me. Right? When you get to the higher levels, you're going to understand what this means. And guess what? And then Yahushua said to them, "Be gone, Satan." He said, "Get off my mountain." That's what he just said. For it is written, "You shall worship Yahuwah your Elohim, and him only shall you serve." So you look at that. He said, "Be gone, Satan." So where's Satan at? Then Satan left him. Left him where? He left him. Left him where? On the mountaintop. He left him there on the mountain. And behold, the Malachi came and were ministering to what? To him. Isn't that what happened to Saphaniah? Isn't that what happened to Cornelius? Huh? It wasn't that the same thing? Wasn't that the same thing that happened to Yaakov? Oh, yeah, the Malachi came and ministered to him. To do what? Verse 12. Now, when he heard that Yochanan had been arrested, he withdrew into Galilee, right? So that's what you got to do when you start saying this, because what Satan do. He go after one person, he go after another person, cash into prison, right? That's what Satan be doing, boy. Y'all be thinking Satan, he stopped. He's like, okay, you resisted me and I fled from you, but I'm going to go get Yochanan now. That's how he be operating. People be like, man, you have no idea. That man don't give up. He said, okay, I'll take, you want to come down, I'll take another person down. Right? So this is 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 9. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Actually, no. That's Thessalonians. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Yeah. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 14. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 14. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 14. This is all important. Right? So 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 13. Besides that, let's see, going to 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 11. But refuse to enroll younger widows, for when their passions draw them away from Mashiach, they desire to marry and so incur condemnation for not having abandoned their former amunah, right? Besides that, they learn to be idlers, going about from house to house, and not only idlers, but also gossips and busybodies. So, saying what they ought not. We're using busybodies. That's the same thing with your own affairs. Only attend to your own affairs. Stop messing with other people's affairs. It's the same thing. Because people nosy, busybodies. So I would have the younger widows marry. Right? These are women whose husband died. Why? Bear children, manage their households. Why? Because these are your managers. Because when you leave your management, then guess what happens? And give the adversary no occasion for slander. He's going to accuse you. That's all he's going to do. Remember, he got away from Yahushua. He's like, man, Yahushua ain't leaving the mountain. Let me go to Yochanan, take him, throw him in prison. Matter of fact, let me go to this woman over here and to get her to be a gossip, a busybody. And matter of fact, and after she do it, I'm going to slander her everywhere. Ha ha ha. That's my job. That's what he do. He all over the book. He said, for some have already strayed after Satan. See, once you go after Satan, he already know, I'm going to deceive you. You already done went after me. And I already know I got your mind. And then when he gets you, if you ain't going to get like Saphaniah and these other people in this Torah, you're going to be just like that. You're going to stay like that. He says, if anybody, that's what happens though. Right? And people say, why? Because that's what happens, right? So this is the book of, right, 2 Chronicles chapter 15 and 2. 2 Chronicles chapter 15 and 2. 2 Chronicles chapter 15 and verse 2. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, or Shani, Dabari HaYamim, 15 and 1. The Ruach came upon Azariah, the son of Obed. You know, the Ruach gives understanding. The age ain't always wise, right? But it says in the Neshama. And he went out to meet Ayshr and said to him, Hear me, Ayshr, and all Yehuda and Benjamin. Because you know Yehuda and Benjamin were the tribes that were given to Rehoboam. But it says, Yahuwah is with you while you are with him. So While you with him, he with you. Why do you think Yahushua would not leave Yahuwah? It is written, he would not leave to the bar. The same thing for an Isha when she's managing her house. If you leave and you don't want to do it, then guess what happens? You have now left Yahuwah. And you went after Satan. And Yahuwah is not with you anymore. And people say, why? Yahuwah will be with you while you be with him. But if you seek him, he will be found by you. Where you seek him at? He would say, where you seek Yahuwah at? He inside of you. And guess what? But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. So please don't be thinking like everything's great if you're not a good manager and you leave your managerial role. He's going to forsake you. I assure you of that. For a long time, Yasharal was without the true Elohim and without a teaching Kohanim and without law. But in their distress, they turned to Yahuwah and the Elohim Yasharal and sought him and was found by him. In those times, there was no peace to him who went out or to him who came in. For great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the land. Why? Why? Because they left Yahuwah. You followed after Satan, and you get all these disturbances that happen in your life, in the land. And guess what verse 6 says? And they were broken in pieces. Uh-oh. Right, this is the book of Psalms chapter 51 in verse 1. He said they were broken in pieces. That's what happens. Psalm Tahalim 51 and 1. He said, have mercy on me, O Elohim, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy. You know what Sophion did? He said, where he be getting this stuff from? Because Yahuwah sits above the mercy seat. Blot out my transgressions, wash me thoroughly to my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sins. For I know my transgressions, and my sins are ever before me. Against you and you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. So he getting out of Sheol. David like, Dawid, I'm getting out of Sheol. I'm getting out of here. So that you may be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. He said, you're going to be blameless. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, cool, and in sin my mother conceived me. Behold, you delight in truth in the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Let me hear the joy and gladness. Let the bones that you have broken rejoice. He said they were broken in pieces. He said many distresses have come. But do you see what you got to do? He said, you have broken, rejoice. The bones you've broken. Hide your face from my sins and blot out my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart. Barab ele tahor le, Yahuwah Elohim. Renew in me the right ruach within me. Kadashah Valeha Yashar ruach. Right? What? Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Qahalath ruach from me. Why? Because the ruach gives understanding. The neshama gives understanding. Why? Restore to me the joy of your salvation and uphold me in your willing ruach. Teach me, then I will teach transgressors your ways. He say, you know what people say, they don't want to repent. And then they say, I want to teach somebody. He's like, I want to start judging somebody, right? I want to get on that. I want to start saying things, and you say, okay. Have you confessed your sins? Have you realized you were broken in pieces? Have you hit the ground? Are you still the same person? He said, then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will return to you. He said, you know you returning. He said, yeah, you'll know. They're going to return. Deliver me from blood guiltness, O Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue I will sing aloud of your righteousness. You know people want you to do? You're not going to sing anything. But you know how it is. They don't want you to do that anymore, right? So this is the book of, we're going to get out of it. We're almost finished. This is the book of Bereshit, chapter 30. Bereshit, chapter 30 and verse 13. Genesis, chapter 30 Genesis chapter 30 and 13. Genesis chapter 30 and verse 13. And Leah said, happy am I for women, for it says, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Ayshr, right? She said, I'm joyful. In the day of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Why would he do it? Well, why would he do anything else? Because a woman's supposed to manage her household. This is what you call a good manager. The son goes out, mandrakes, and he brings it to his mother Leah. Brings the food home, because that's what sons are supposed to do, and husbands, right? Because they go out and they bring the food back. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. That's what love thy neighbor as you love yourself. That's what that is. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your mandrakes. But she said to her, it is a small matter that you have taken away my husband. Will you take away my son's mandrakes also? These are all a part of managerial management. And Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. And when Yaakov came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come into me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. Why? Because these are all a part of managerial 201. Why? Because management 201 comes with negotiations. He said, you're going to have to negotiate in certain situations when it comes to household affairs. You're going to have to negotiate in certain situations when it comes to things that you want. You're going to have to negotiate, and you're going to have to understand how to negotiate in order to manage your household properly. That's both male and female. You're going to have to negotiate. Because if you don't know how to do this, then Satan's going to get an advantage. And once he gets an advantage, it's over, right? This is all a part of it, right? So this is the book of Bereshit, chapter 18, Genesis chapter 18 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 18 and verse 1. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 18, verse 1. And Yahuwah appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. What time do you think that was? Noontime. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the Aydah and said, O Yahuwah. Oh, okay. So let me guess, you're going to see something that's greater and more, and you ain't going to hit the ground? If I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Why? Because Malachi had a certain presence that came with him. And Abraham already knew. Hey, this ain't the normal visitation. While I bring a morsel of bread, you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on. Since you have come to your servant, so they said, do as you have said. See, when you're a good manager, you understand when your perception is open and you understand what's actually before you, you understand the actual invitations that you need. Like I say, invitations you need to extend to other people, and you need to understand how one needs to react and not overreact, especially when you have Malachi sitting in front of your face. And Yahweh said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, so this is what you call management. He's being a good manager. He's already offering them things, bread. You know how people offer you an appetizer? When you go, you say, you want some bread and some olive oil to dip it in? You need some pepper with that? Matter of fact, you need to wash your feet. Right, these are all a part of customs. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour needed to make cakes. Can you imagine being at a restaurant and somebody telling you an order, and then you go to the restaurant and then the order person say, quick, 3 seahs of cakes, fine flour, make cakes. And they say, no, I ain't doing nothing. Man, you're going to be out of business. you're going to be out of business, or you're going to need to find another employee. Because that's called good management. And Abraham ran in the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. He's like, look at here. We trying to impress these people coming in here, and we're not trying to go out of business. So in order for us not to go out of business and have bad reviews for our business, we need to make sure we're doing things properly, right? Because you're going to get a bad review if you don't make this thing right? You know, a lot of people got bad reviews out here, right? You say, why you got bad reviews? Because of your management, because of your employees, because of you, the manager, right? Then he took curds of oil and milk and calf and prepared it and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. He was sitting there watching. Like. And then you walk over. You've been in a restaurant. And they come over and they walk over and be like, is everything great? You need anything else? Was that good? Do you like it? Yeah, that's wonderful. And they go back. He stood there and watched. They watching you when you go to these restaurants. They watching you. They don't understand. They like, man, do they like it? They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, she is in the tent. And people say, why I ain't got no children? He said, why you ain't got no children? Why would Yahuwah give you children? A righteous seed. You know how it says in Malachi? This whole purpose is to produce righteous seed. Why would Yahuwah give you a child? It must be something he ain't doing. This is they say this management 201, right? It must be something you're not doing. They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, she is in the tent. Notice how when they start serving properly and doing these servants and doing things properly and quick, 3 seals of fine flour, doing all the things, serving at the tent, offering things, wash your feet. These are all things that Yahuwah wants. I like the way you operate. Let me barak you. Let me give you something you're asking for. Because Abraham was looking for an heir. He wanted somebody to pass down his wealth to. And he ain't have nobody. So he needed someone. It was a need. So let me give you something you're asking for. Being that you've now changed your ways and you're now become good managers. She's in the tent. And Yahuwah said, I will surely return to you about this time next year. And Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women has ceased to be in Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out, and my master is old, shall I have pleasure? And Yahuwah said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child, now that I am old? Is anything too hard for Yahuwah? At the appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. So now you see why Yahuwah be planning your barak based upon what you do, your managerial skills, and then he say, next year you're going to get a barak. Just because of what you did now. You had to wait a whole year for it to happen. Just because of what you did now. That's why I said today is the day of salvation. Based upon what you do today determines what you get next year. Why do you think Yahushua said, until his child is born, until his son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders? He shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Prince of Shalom. What you do now will determine what you get next year. That's what he said. Because every knee gonna bow, every tongue gonna confess that he is master to the kabod of Yahuwah. What you do now will determine what you get next year. Right? And people say, why? That's the whole point. Right, this is the book of Bereshit, chapter 2. Bereshit chapter 2 and verse 1. We almost finished it. We almost out of here. Right? Bereshit chapter 2 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 1. Going to, Bereshit chapter 2, verse 5. And when no bushes of the field was yet in the land, and no small plant of the field had yet sprung up, for Yahuwah had not caused it to rain on the land, and there was no man to work the ground. There was nobody. And the mist was going up from the land and was watering the face of the ground. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed the man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. He breathed into his nostrils the neshama, the ruach. And man, Adam, became a living creature. He did. He breathed into his nostrils. He got up. He became a living creature because he just brought him out of Sheol. How you say? He brought him out of hell. And guess what he did? And Yahuwah Elohim planted a gan in Eden, in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Yahuwah, you broke me into pieces. You made these pieces rejoice. He said, you broke me into pieces, but you made these pieces rejoice. He said, blot out my sins and my transgressions. That's what Dawid said, for they are ever before me. But he formed Adam again from the dust of the ground, and then he put him in the garden. And then what did David say? Dawid said, then I will teach transgressors your ways. Then I'm going to go into the garden after I do all of that. And it says, whom he had formed, and out of the ground Yahuwah had made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. And there was a tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right? And why did he do all this? Going to verse 15. And Yahuwah took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to work it and keep it, to Aydah, to be a servant, and Shamar, to keep it. And Yahuwah commanded the man, saying, you may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat of it. For the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. There's going to be a war. 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 I promise you that. There's going to be a war inside of you that you ain't never had before. And that's why David said, you broke me into pieces. He said, but blot out my sins and my transgressions. Created me a clean heart. Renew me the right ruach. And then guess what happens? Then I will teach transgressors your ways in the garden. Because that's what you call managerial skills. He hired him. I'm going to hire my children to work for me in the garden. He hired him as a manager. And his job was to abide and shamar in the garden. So when he saw Abraham doing that, he said, man, you look like somebody I remember. You look like somebody I remember. Matter of fact, the way you served, you remind me of Adam. This is what I'm going to do for you. Because your attributes remind me of somebody. This time next year, I'm going to give you a son. You know that thing you were asking for? Because the things you did before showed that you were deserving of a son. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of it. Why do you think Yuchanan said, bring forth fruit, meet for repentance? You said, why? Because that's the whole point of it. What you did before will make the determination if Yahuwah going to give you a son, give you the son. What's the point of entrusting you with the son when you're not really a good manager? It's all a part of it. Right, this is the book of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, chapter 25, and verse 1. 1 Samuel, Aleph Shamuel, 25, and 1. It says, actually going to verse, 25:1. Let's skip down this one. It says, now Samuel died, and all Yasharal assembled and mourned for him, and buried him in the house of Ramah. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man of Moab whose business was in Carmel. His what? Managerial skill, management 201. He had a business. Was in Mount Carmel. The man was very rich. You know how he says like Cornelius was rich too. Gave much alms, right? And had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Man, he was balling. He had a bunch of money. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, meaning worthless, right? Son of Balaam, right? And the name of his wife, Abigail. I mean, he was a manager. He had a managerial skill. He like Adam and Kua. Adam in the garden, and he had Kua with him, right? The woman was discerning and beautiful, which means, what do you mean discerning? She had intellect, she had wisdom, hakmah. She was discerning. She was able to discern between what? Good and evil. Having your members exercise. See, she ain't eat no milk. Because strong meat is for those, strong food, solid food for those who are full age, having the members exercise to discern between good and evil. See, when you can't discern between good and evil, you can't understand this. But the man was harsh and badly behaved. He said, you are evil. You rob. You are evil. You ain't quiet and loving. He said, live a quiet, peaceful life like your code, because your code had the same animals you got. And your code was loving and quiet. Right? Guess what it said? He was a Calebite, right? He was like, that's that masculine, right? He was that Caleb, right? David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, right? He sent 10 young men. And David said to the young men, go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. He's like, this is a management 101. So you got a partner. You know how you have management 101, 201, and then you have partnerships with other people. And then you have a partnership with that business, and that business did a service for you. And then that service was rendered to you, and then you're supposed to do something in return, like pay them or give them something in return for their service that they've done for you as a manager of a business. And thus you shall greet him. Shalom be to you, and shalom be to your house, and shalom be to all that you have. Hey man, I ain't trying to covet your neighbor's house, wife, donkey, and manservant, maidservant, sheep, donkey. I ain't trying to covet nothing you got. I don't even want it. I don't even want what you got. I just want the things that I did for you. I hear that you have shears. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm. We ain't suffer no loss. We ain't take none of their sheep and eat them. Man, we ain't eat none of their stuff. We ain't take none of the things they had. We ain't eat none of their stuff. And they missed nothing at all the time we were in Carmel. We were hungry too. We could have killed all their animals and ate everything they had. Ask your young men and they will tell you. They'll tell you we ain't touch your animals. We ain't kill none of the stuff. We ain't take none of your food. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servant and to your son, David. He said, please, whatever you got. And when David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and they said, and then they waited. You know how I said, you give all your alms and you need to wait. He said, I done gave everything I was supposed to give, and now I'm waiting. I'm waiting for something in return from you. Let's see what happened. And Nabal answered David's servants, who is David? And then he said, you see, he started railing. He said, hold up, I did something for you. I gave much alms, and I waited. Matter of fact, I waited, Nabal, for all the things. I'm asking you to return the favor back to me. But you know what you did? Who is David? And who is the son of Yeshai? Therefore are my servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Right? You done left Yahuwah. Yahuwah will be with you while you be with him. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you, but not even knowing Nabal forsook him. Don't even know it. Shall I take my bread and my water and my food, my meat, my akla, my ekal, that I have killed for my shears, and give it to men whom come from I do not know where? He said, man, I don't care. I got all that food. I'm rich too. I don't care where you come from. And guess what? So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, every man strap on his sword, because the debar is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, discerning of the intents in the heart, separating, he said, from the joint and marrow, discerning the thoughts and the intents of the heart. That's what it is. That's what the debar is. He said, man, every man strap on your sword. We finna kill these people with the debar. Right? And get what he said. And every man of them strapped on his sword, and David also strapped on his sword. And about 400 men went up after Dawid, right? He was leading the thing, right? These people don't want to lead. They're like, man, you ain't going to do nothing. They down the street, too. The people you talking about, 10 exits down, you ain't going to do nothing. You saying them, people talk. But when them people start to realize you ain't nothing, they going to strap on that sword. They going to bring their 400 at you, and you going to understand you ain't no the bar at all, right? What you said again? Because the time going to come, if you don't do what you're supposed to, them people going to strap on them swords, and they going to come, and you going to find out you ain't no the bar like you said you did. And guess what? About 400 men with him went up with Dawid, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, because you know why? She was a discerning woman and beautiful. She discerned between good and evil. Behold, Dawid sent messengers out to the wilderness and greet our master, and he railed at him. See, this is good management 101. The head manager don't want to do his job. The head manager think he all that. But then the Ayshr, who could discern between good and evil, said, yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything when we were in the fields, as long as we went with them. They were a wall to us both by night and by day. That's why Yahuwah said, meditate on the bar human night. Didn't Yahuwah fight for Yasharal against Pharaoh? Pillar of fire, cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night. And amazingly, Dawid was just like that. But guess what Nabal did? He liked Pharaoh. And guess what? They were a wall both of the night by night and day, and all the while we were with them keeping sheep. Now therefore know this and consider what you should do. Don't do nothing. They say good managerial 201, Adam and Kua, case study, Nabal and Abigail, even though Nabal is hard-headed. The Ayshr got to do something and step in. If you don't, right, this is what you call a good manager. He says women need to manage the house. Notice the servants are like, this is what you need to do. Right? Ain't that something? And people say, nah. Now therefore know this and consider what you should do. For harm is determined against our master and against all his house, and he is such a worthless man. He is that cannot speak, that one cannot speak to him. You can't say nothing to him. It don't matter what you say. He ain't humble, he pretend. You can't say nothing to this man. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 seals of parched grain, 100 clusters of ravens and 200 cakes and figs, and laid them on the donkey, right? So she did a quick truck, food truck. She did that thing so quick, threw that thing on there, put it in the food truck, got in that food truck, and she said to her young men, go before me before I come after you. Isn't that what Yaakov did to Esau? And amazingly, what was Yaakov? He was a loving and quiet man. What do you think Abigail was? She was a loving and quiet woman. She was a wise woman. Wise as a serpent. And guess what? And she said to her young men, go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. She said she didn't even tell him. You know how they say, you better tell me where you going, woman. You know how it is. Sometimes when you start getting hard-headed, I'm trying to tell you, sometimes that stuff be to save your life. You just don't know it. Sometimes that stuff be to save your life now. People be like, man, you have no idea. And as she rode on the donkey and came down under cover of the mountain, behold, Dawid and his men came down toward her. This is why you got to be a good manager. You got to discern between, okay, I'm in the wrong. And I'm an evil person. I need to hit the ground and realize I'm a sinner. And I'm wicked. Right? I assure you, your humility will be like, you ain't going to be thinking about your Ayshr where she went. I promise you that. That ain't going to be the first thing on your mind. And he says, behold, Dawid and his men came down toward her, and she met them. And Dawid had said, surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness. He said, I did all this stuff for nothing. Can you imagine? Working for somebody and they don't pay you? You're like, man, look at here. I'm counting on this stuff. Boy, it's the feast day. I'm broke. I'm hungry. And you ain't going to give me my wages. You know how that is. That's what the law said. He said, don't even withhold the wages before the sun goes down. He said, you do it for the stranger. You ain't supposed to do it for the stranger. And here you are doing it for your brother. You're not even supposed to do that for the stranger, the hired worker. No, that don't mean nothing. So that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him. You old rich, little snobby, little hard-headed. I don't want to do nothing for your little rich, little behind. Get out my face. All that money you got. I don't care. And he has returned me evil for good. Uh-oh. He like, man, I don't care nothing about your little riches, your little billion, quintillion dollars. You think that little bit of money gonna do nothing? He's like, hold up. You don't see all this stuff I did? He's like, man, get out of my face, right? Allah do so to my enemies of Dawid, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him. See, you can end this right now. People say, man, how you end all this violence right now? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to end all this violence and where you live at and where you at. You need to break some people off some money, some cash, something. You need to give them something. That's the only way you're going to end the violence. He says what? A gift pacifies anger, right? Doesn't it say that in what David said? A gift pacifies anger. When Abigail saw Dawid and hurried go down from the donkey and fell before Dawid, that's what you call a good manager. Because they already know, I got to make this thing right. It's on us tonight. Don't you worry about it. We're going to make this thing right. It's on us. That's called good management. You don't have to worry about nothing. Your bill, we got your bill. And here's the food too. Management 201. And on her face, bowed down to the ground, she fell at his feet and said, oh, on me alone, my master, be the guilt. That's why I think you they that reproach you, Yahuwah, it fell on me. Because that man, Nabal, reproached Yahuwah by transgressing the law, the Torah. And guess what? She said, I will bear his sin. That's what Yahushua did for us. That's why he sent that woman to Dawid, because she had to fulfill the Torah. How the scripture going to be fulfilled? You know what people do? I'm going to leave my managerial skills because my husband is just wicked. Uh-oh. You know how they say? I'm going to leave and he's just wicked. No. Violation. Yahuwah will be with you while you be with him. You got to do something. Either your skills ain't up, discern between good and evil, and you don't know what to do. You ain't reading the Torah, you ain't studying, you ain't doing the things you need to do. You don't know your Aleph Bez, you don't know Abri Lashon. So now, you done did something you weren't supposed to do. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the words of your servant. Let not my master regard this worthless fellow. She even said, my husband, he worthless. He worthless. He don't transgress the Torah. You know how to say, man, forget that. He said, you ain't supposed to have no respect to persons. Or you a sin. You know what the Torah said? He said, you ain't supposed to have no respect to persons. You don't care who you is. You be like, yeah, he loved me. Man, Yahuwah don't care who you is. You start transgressing the Torah, Yahuwah don't care who you are. It don't matter who you are. Title, it don't matter. You worthless. Nabal, for his name is so he is. Nabal is his name. And folly is with him. Guess what? When you got that folly, Yahuwah don't care about who you are. That's the whole point. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my master whom you sent. I was ignorant this whole thing. I just heard about it and I came to make things right. I was ignorant. I ain't know. Because you know when you ignorant, Yahuwah forgives you. But when you know, think about it, she would have heard it and knew and didn't do nothing. Her husband, everybody in her house would have been killed. But being that she was ignorant, now then, my master, as Yahuwah lives and as your soul lives, because Yahuwah has restrained you from blood guilt and from saving with your own hand, now then let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my master be as Nabal. He said, be as Nabal. Why? Because Yahuwah sent her to him. And now let this present that your servant has brought to my master be given to the young men who follow my master. Please forgive the trespasses of your servant. He said, what? So you want to leave your husband after he just evil? Huh? Nah, you gotta speak the straight facts. This man evil, he worthless, I was ignorant. I didn't know. Let me bring this to you. Matter of fact, this is what I need. This is what I want you to do. For Yahuwah will certainly make my master a sure house, because Yahuwah, my master, is fighting the battles. Because my master is fighting the battles of Yahuwah, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. He said, you can't have no evil fighting no evil battles in your life. You're gonna let these people get you upset. You're gonna let these people get you upset, and you're gonna end up doing something you shouldn't do, especially when people do something to you. Ooh, but you want to do something back. Oh, he said, man, I want to retaliate. He said, I want to retaliate so much. He said, I know. He said, man, tenfold, Sheba theme, Debar, right? But guess what it says? If men rise up and pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my master shall be bound in a bundle of the living in the care of Yahuwah, your Elohim. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as far as from a hollow of a sling. And when Yahuwah has done to my master according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and appointed you prince over Yasharal, my master shall be no cause of grief or pains or of conscience for having shed blood without a cause for Yahuwah, for my master working salvation himself. And when Yahuwah has dealt well with my master, then remember your servant. She's like, remember me. Why do you think that thief, what do you think the cross, when he was on totality, he said, do you not fear Elohim? And then what Abigail was doing? We are under the same condemnation. Remember me in paradise. Isn't that what the women did with Pharaoh? They feared Yahuwah. Isn't that what Yusuf did with the Mizraim woman? They fear Yahuwah. And Dawid said to Abigail, Barak be Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yasharal, who sent you this day to meet me. Huh? Who did what? Who sent? Huh? You mean Shalak? You know Shalak. Why? Barak be your discretion, and Barak be you, who have kept me this day from blood guilt, and from working salvation with my own hand. You kept me from sin. For surely as Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal lives, who has restrained me from hurting you. She was dead too. Understand that. So people be thinking like everything good. Guess what? Unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. Then Dawid received from her hand what she had brought him, her yard, and he said to her, go in shalom to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice. And I have granted your petition. So this is what he said, what do you think prayer is? Who do you think you praying to sitting on the mercy seat? But guess who you praying to who above the mercy seat? Why do you think who you said, he that has seen me has seen the Father? Because when you go in your innermost parts, or you pray in the meeting place with the cherubim that's touching each wall in the mercy seat, that's Yahushua sitting on the throne. And then above the mercy seat is his Father. Because he said, he that has seen me has seen the Father. And you know what happens? I have granted your petition to spare your husband. This day. Not 10 days later though. Just this day. Because what you do today could save somebody's life for 10 days. It may extend your life 10 days. Man, it may be 10 days. He may give you I give you life extension, 10 days. You only had 10 days to repent. After that, you need to realize your guilt after 10 days. He's like, man, you almost dead. You was gone. Right? He said, man, Yahuwah don't sin now. I said, okay. Whatever you want to believe whatever you want. He said, I'm just gonna believe what it say. He said, I'm not following you. Right? He said, what? That's the whole point. Right? This is yeah, we're gonna get out of here, right? So this is Zechariah 8, 9 through we're gonna go through this 9 through 16, 17. This is what Yahuwah Almighty says. Now hear these words. Let your hands be strong so that the temple may be built. This is also that what the Nabiim said, who were present when the foundations was laid for the house of Yahuwah Elohim Almighty. Before that time, there was no wages for people or hire for animals, because there wasn't no wages. And Nabal was rich; he had plenty of wages, but he didn't even give nothing. No one could go about their business safely because of their enemies. Right? That's what Dawid was fighting the battles with his enemies. And doing work for Nabal, he couldn't even give the wages. Since I have turned everyone against their neighbor. Who did that? We just read it in 1 Samuel 1. But now I will deal I will not deal with the remnant of this people as I did in the past, declares Yahuwah Almighty. The seed will grow well, and the vine will yield its fruit, and the ground will produce its crops, and the shamayim will drop their dew, and I will give all these things as an inheritance to the remnant of this people. Just as you, Yehuda and Yasharal, have been a curse among the nations, so I will save you and will be a barak, and you will be a blessing. Do not be afraid, but let your hands be strong. This is what Yahuwah Almighty says. Just as I have determined to bring disaster on you and show no pity when your ancestors angered me, says Yahuwah Almighty, so now I have determined to do good again. You know what Dawid, when Abigail came to him, he was going to destroy him. But he had pity. He said, man, because he sent you to me, I'm going to spare everybody. Because she did it. So now I've determined to do good again to Jerusalem and Yehuda, and do not be afraid. These are the things that you are to do. Speak the truth to each other. You know what Abigail did to Dawid? She spoke the truth to him, and Dawid spoke the truth back to her. And render true sound judgment in your court. Man, that nigga Nabal, he ain't nothing but he a not generous, hateful man. Nabal, that's what his name is. But guess what? Do not plot evil against each other. He said, but no, we're not going to do that. And do not love or swear falsely. Why? I hate all of this. Declares Yahuwah. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of it. Yahuwah be hating all that. So he says, you know what? This is what I need you to do, right? So that word for a curse is kulala. It means curse, vilification. He said, you have been a curse. The act of writing unpleasant things about something so that other people will have a low opinion of them. And Nabal didn't even have to do that. Just his behavior alone. He didn't even have to do all that, right? Right, skipping over to verse 5. This Ba'is Shemuel 16:5. And when King Dawid came to Baharim, there came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gerah. And as he came, he cursed continually. And he threw stones at Dawid and all the servants of King Dawid. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand, on his left. And Shimei said as he cursed, Get out, you man of blood, you worthless man. He called him like Nabal. He's saying you like Nabal. You know what Dawid did in Nabal? Nabal was a dead man, right? Didn't Dawid do the same thing? Oh, okay. And then Yahuwah has avenged on you all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you reign, and Yahuwah has given the kingdom into the hand of your son Absalom. See, your evil is on you, for you are a man of blood, you adulteress. Right? That's what he did. Now, you a man of blood, right? You adulterous hypocrite. You liar, you killed Uriah, you hypocrite, you liar. See, Absalom taking your kingdom. You know how it is. Then Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my master, the king? He's like, you know how Dawid was back in the day. You say something, he come kill your behind. Let me go over and take off his head. That's how it was. That's what Dawid men were like. People say, man, you have no idea. Back in the day, Dawid men were like bear robbed of her cubs, but kill your behind. But the king said, what have I to do with you, you son of Zeruiah? If he is cursing, it is because Yahuwah has said, curse Qahalath Dawid. Who then shall say, why have you done so? He said, man, you know why you're doing this? Because that's who you are. Because I already remember my sin. I remember what I did. So ain't no point in me trying to take off somebody's head right now. Because I'm a sinner too. Because I'm trying to get out of Sheol just like you. And I'm going to bow my head to the ground just like you do. And I'm trying to get out of hell too and cross the other side too. So there's no point in me saying my sins ain't written down, just like Saf and Yah said. It's a matter of me for me to just accept what I am, accept who I am, and to go over to the other side. Just like this person that's cursing got to do too, as well. It may be that Yahuwah will look on the wrong done to me, and that Yahuwah will repay me good for his cursing, his Qahalath today. So Dawid and his men went on the road, while Shammai went along the hillside opposite him and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him and flung dust. And the king and all the people who were with him arrived weary at Yarden, and there he refreshed himself. He's like, man, look here, I'm already in condemnation. Right. Now this is Ephesians 4:17. Now this I say and testify in the master, that you must no longer walk as the Goyim do, in the futility in their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of Elohim because of the ignorance that is in them. Due to the hardness of heart, they have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. But that it is not the way you learn Mashiach, because he told us to love each other more and more and walk quietly. Assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him, as the truth is in Yahusha, to put off the old self which belongs to the former manner of life, is corrupt in its deceitful desire. This is why he said, put it away. That's what Dawid did. He just read it. He's like, man, I put all that stuff away. I remember I used to be like that. Matter of fact, I remember I used to cut people's head off. I used to tell a young man, execute their behind immediately. You dead, right? I remember, but then I said, man, I ain't that quick to pull the trigger on the sword no more. And to be renewed in the ruach of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of Yahuwah in true righteousness and Chdsh. Right? Because you know that word for minds is nous, intellect. That is the mind, divine nature, human thought, feeling, will, understanding. Be renewed in the ruach of your nous, your minds. Why? Because that's the intellectual properties of who you are, right? And that's the whole point. This is Psalm 62, 1-8. For Elohim alone, my soul waits in silence, quietly. That's why you see your code was like that. From him comes my salvation. Now you see why he tells us to be quiet and humble and only deal with your own affairs, right? He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, and I shall not be greatly shaken. How long will you attack a man to batter him like a leaning wall and a tottering fence? He said, you already see the person already down. They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. That's all he's trying to do. They take pleasure in falsehood. They barak with their mouths, but inwardly they Qahalath, they curse. Isn't that what the man was doing? He ain't got to say it either. For Elohim, you alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, and I shall not be shaken. O Yahuwah, rest my salvation and my kabod and my mighty rock, my refuge is Elohim Yahuwah. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. Yahuwah is a refuge for us. So that word for inwardly is Qahalath. It means midst, inner part, middle, inner part, physical sense, a seat of thoughts and emotions. Faculty of thoughts and emotion. These all take place in your mind. Your inner thought. Why? The nearest part, in the center, right? The center of who you are, right? That's where you meet with Yahuwah at. And this is all a part of it, right? This is 2 Samuel, Shemuel 23, 1-7. Now these are the last words of Dawid, the oracle of Dawid, the son of Yeshua, the oracle of the man who was raised on high, the anointed Elohim of Yaakov, the sweet psalmist of Yasharal. That's why Yahusha said, if the son of Adam be lifted up, I'm going to draw people to myself. because he was the one that was lifted up, and he was the sweet psalmist of Yasharal. That's why everybody hated him. The Ruach of Yahuwah speaks by me. His word is on my tongue. The Elohim of Yasharal has spoken. The Ruach of Yasharal has said to me, when one rules justly over men or women, or a business, or a manager, ruling and fearing all Elohim, right? As a manager, as a ruler, you have to be a ruler. You have to manage your property. That's male, that's female too. Why do you think she was like the yard to those servants when they came to Abigail? The same thing. But the sun shines 7 times brighter than the moon. But at the same time, those servants still got to look and say, hey, this is what you need to do. He dawns on them like the morning light. That's what he does. When you rule in the fear of Elohim, like the women of, when you rule like the women of Mizraim who fear Yahuwah rather than Pharaoh or Yusuf or even Abigail. Get what? He dawns on him like the morning light, like the sun shining forth on the cloudless morning. That's why they shine forth so bright. Even Dawid had to listen. He's like, man, Yahuwah sent you to me. He said, by this time next morning, man, y'all finna kill Nabal, but you shine the light in darkness. It was dark when he came. Because it was the evening time. And she shined the light right in his face. And she said, man, Yahuwah sent you to me because you are a shining light. And he said, he's like the shining forth at the cloudless morning, like rain that makes grass to sprout from the earth. He said, it's just like the rain that makes grass sprout from the earth. Why? Because it's just like ore. Haki or Bakar Zarak. Right? It's just like rising up. Right? This very same thing. Like the sun, the Shamash in the morning. It's just like the sun rising in the morning. Le'ab, right? Just like the clouds, right? Nigah, right? That rises, right? Mutsar, right? Matar, I'm talking about rain, that's rain. Matar, dasher, from the Adats, right? Just like the rain that rises, or you say dasher from the Adats, right? It's all a part of it. But he says just like the rain that makes the grass to sprout. Because what makes the grass to sprout? The dew in the morning, it makes it dasher. That's what happened on the third day of creation. That's what that word is, dasher. Right? But we're going right here, and it says, verse 5 says, For does not my house stand so with Elohim? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant in everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and secure. For will he not cause to prosper all my help and my desire? That's what happened to Abigail. He caused to prosper all my help and my desire. That was Yahuwah's desire. And that was Yahuwah's help. That wasn't Nabal's help. That was Yahuwah's help. And that was Yahuwah's desire to stop Dawid. But worthless men are like a thorns that are thrown away. That's what Nabal was. That's why he was killed in the 10th day. For they cannot be taken with the hand. Man, I can't take nothing from your hand. That's why you think Dawid wanted to kill him? I can't take that stuff from your hand. Once you curse like that, he's like, man, I can't take nothing from you. But the man who touches them arms himself with iron and the shafts and the spear. Now you see why David was coming to kill him. He was not playing with him. And they are utterly consumed with fire, right? And that's the whole point of it. Because he was coming to kill him, right? Right, so that word Zarak, it means to rise, to come forth. So it says, he dawns on them like the morning light. And like the shining light from forth on the cloudless morning, like rain that makes grass to sprout, right? So he says he rises, right? So that word it rises, that word for shining is shining forth. That word for shining is Zarak. It means to rise, to come forth, to break out, to rise up, to shine. That's what the sun, the Shamash, is doing right now as you go toward the longest day. As we move toward the longest day, the sun is starting to spring up and start to rise up and going past the claim, going to spring. And that's what's happening in this 11th month. You say, why? Because that's what's happening. The roots are getting bigger. And guess what? The sun is coming back. And that's what it is. He said, that's what happens when you have a good manager. When you're operating in good management, that's what happens. It means to be erratic. It means to irradiate. That's what the Shamash does. It irradiates stuff. It irradiates sin. It shows you who you are. It reveals what you're getting ready to do, and if it's righteous or unrighteous. And when the light shines, like Abigail shined in David's face, and just like the light shined in Pharaoh's face when he came to the women, or Yusuf's face, the light shone and he spoke, it shined on their face, and it's shining. Just like Saphaniah, he saw all of the sins that were written down, and it shined in his face, and he realized he was wicked. Satan ain't gonna do that. And it says that is to rise. It means also as the sun, right? Just like the sun. As the sun, specifically to appear, to rise, to come forth. He said that's what a good ruler is in his home. It's just like the sun shining forth. Why? Because it's all a part of it, right? Because it's all a part of it, right? This is Psalms 130. Psalms 130 and 1. Tehillim, Psalms 130 and 1. Psalms 130 and 1. It says, out of the depths I cry to you, O Yahuwah. Now you see why you gotta bow down. You say, why you gotta bow down like Saphaniah? We trying to get out of Sheol, out of the abyss. You in the depths of Sheol. You in the abyss. O Yahuwah, hear my voice. Have mercy on me, a sinner. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my pleas for mercy. Because he sits above the mercy seat. This is not rocket science. This is not hard. If you, O Yahuwah, should mark iniquities, O Yahuwah, who could stand? What you standing up for? What you got your head lifted up for? He said, who gonna be able to stand? You know what Satan gonna do? Satan gonna sit there and he gonna act like he's somebody standing up. But with you is forgiveness, that you may be feared. Because he that ruleth his house in the fear of Yahuwah is like the sun, shining forth as a morning light. Like a cloudless morning, like rain. I want to be like the sun coming out of the portal. You know how the sun comes out of the 6th portal? In the portal in the morning, you need to bow down before you come up out of the abyss. Talking about you going to shine up. You better hit the ground in the morning time. You better hit the ground in the morning time before you start talking about I'm going to shine up. I'm going to come out of my bridal chamber like the sun. No, you need to hit the ground first. Then rise up out of the portal so you will know that you ain't nothing, right? Get what? Forgiveness that you may be feared. I wait for Yahuwah, my soul waits. And in his word I hope. Now you see why the morning sacrifice is so important. My soul waits for Yahuwah more than the watchman for the morning. So he say more than the watchman for the morning. You get off work. Because in the morning time, that's when the sun rises. He said, I wait for Yahuwah. More than the watchman for the morning. That's the whole point. Oh Yasharal, hope in Yahuwah hope in Yahuwah. For with Yahuwah there is steadfast love, like Yaakov. You know how Yaakov was so loving and quiet. You see, with him. And with him is plentiful redemption. And he will redeem Yasharal from all his iniquities. Now you see why Yahushua came in. Why you think Yahushua blood? You're not redeemed with corruptible things, silver and gold, tin, cryptocurrency, possessions, houses, all these things. You were redeemed by the precious blood of Yahushua Mashiach. You were redeemed not by your stock portfolio investments, none of these things, your trust funds and all these things, right? You were redeemed by his blood. That's the whole point. Right? Going to the book of Psalms, chapter 19. We almost finished. Psalms chapter 19. Psalms Tehillim, chapter 19 and verse 1. Psalms 19 and 1, it says, Psalms 19 and 1. It says, the heavens declare your kabod of Elohim, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day he pours out speech, and night to night he reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. So please don't be thinking you who ain't hear you. Their voice goes out through all the adats, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber. It comes out. And like a strong man who runs its course with joy. Now you see why you got to bow in the morning. In the Bakar sacrifice. So you can run your course with joy, because the sun goes in its course, rises in the east and sets in the west. Its rising is from the end of the Shama'ims, and its circuit to the end of them. So how you going to understand the end of the Shama'ims and the circuits and the kug and the movements when you don't even bow in the morning time and the sun rises out of the portal? How you going to understand it? And there is nothing hidden from the heat, because it's just like the sun. That's like a ruler in his house. That's like a rulership. Shamash rule by day, the yard rule by night. It's like a sun that shines in the daytime. It's just like that. The law of Yahuwah is perfect, reviving the soul. That's why you got to bow in the morning time. What teaches you to bow Bakar and do the morning sacrifice? What revives your soul in the morning time? When you pray to Yahuwah in the morning time? When you up Bakar and you praying to him? The testimony of Yahuwah is sure, making the wise the simple. The precepts of Yahuwah are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandments of Yahuwah is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahuwah is clean, enduring forever. The rules of Yahuwah are true and righteous together. Isn't that, he said they called Dawid the sweet songs, right? He rhyming right here. You don't even know how you rhyming like this. More to be desired than anything, and more than gold, even fine gold, sweeter than honey that drips on the honeycomb that runs. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. Give what? Give attentive to warnings, exhortations before Yahuwah comes, right? In keeping them a great reward. My reward is with me, to give to everyone according to your deeds. Whoever discerns his errors, you know what Safanyah did? You know what the tax collector did? You know what Dawid did? You know what Abigail did for Nabal? They discerned the errors. Have you? That's the whole point. Whoever can discern his errors, declare me innocent from hidden faults. Can you? Who can discern his errors? Can you? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. They ain't never going to dominate me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgressions. Let the words of my mouth, and the meditation of my heart, my yetzer, my imaginations, be acceptable in your sight. So where you gonna appear for Yahuwah at? When you gonna be in his sight at? When you go in the innermost parts of yourself. When you go there where the mercy seat at. And you don't want to go there. And I fast 3 times a week. I pay taxes. I pay tithes of everything I got. I'm glad I'm not this tax collector. I'm glad I'm not an adulteress either. Matter of fact, I'm glad I ain't do this either. But guess what? You did some other stuff in your life too. You may not committed adultery like Dawid, like he did, but you showed cursing inside of your heart and your mind, and you showed getting ready to go pray that next day. And Yahuwah's like, what you did in your life to make you cast stones at somebody else based upon a council giving the NFL to sleep with 10 women to fornicate in front of Yasharal. What makes you want to throw stones at somebody else when you justifying the wicked sitting in the palace with Absalom right now? And why are you casting stones at somebody else when the leader that you proclaiming to be something is a sinner just like you and just like Dawid? Ooh. See, he ain't thinking about that when he was doing all that cursing though. And he was throwing that rocks and he ain't wasn't thinking about all that. But Yahuwah was. He said, what you defending these people for? And people don't be thinking about that stuff when they be doing stuff. Man, you start thinking about some of the stuff that people do in the Torah, you be like, man. Yahuwah said, curse me, don't you? Man, you start thinking about that. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. O Yahuwah, the my rock and my redeemer. That's how you not redeem with corruptible things, silver and gold. Who else gonna redeem you from stuff like that? Who else gonna do that? He said, man, there are sins that lead to death. I won't say you want to pray for that, because you already know you're gonna get punished for it. But who's going to redeem you from stuff like that? Who's going to actually allow you to actually, how you say, get out of Sheol? Because sometimes we see people stay in Sheol. They don't even know they ain't got to stay there, but they'll stay there though. You don't even got to stay there. This is the book of Micah chapter 5. Micah chapter 5, 7 through 13. Micah chapter 5. Micah chapter 5, verse 7. Micah chapter 5 and verse 7. Then the remnant of your code shall be in the midst of many peoples like the dew from Yahuwah. And then what we just read, like the sun, it's like the dash, like the rains. He that ruleth, a good manager. So if we're not good managers, managerial skills, and we're not good managers, both male and female, then there's no way you can be like the sun, like the rain that makes grass grow. You can't. Then the remnant of your code shall be in the midst of many peoples, like the dew from Yahuwah, like the showers on the grass, which delay not for a man, nor wait for the children of Adam. And the remnant of your code shall be among the nations in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep, which when it goes through, treads down and tears in pieces, and there is none to deliver. In the way Yahuwah said in Psalms 50, he said, mark this, you who forget Yahuwah. He said, you sit and speak against your brother, you slander your own mother's son. What do you think? What do you think Qahalath means? Why do you think Dawid was like, let him do what he doing? He said, he that offers praise, thanksgiving, the Aydah offers it to me. That's Psalms 50, right? Your hand shall be lifted up over your adversaries, and your enemies shall be cut off. What do you think the ball was? And in that day, declares Yahuwah, I will cut off your horses from among you, and destroy your chariots. And I will cut off the cities of your land, and throw down all your strongholds. And I will cut off all sorceries from your hand. And ye shall have no more tellers of fortunes. You know how it is. When you ain't got no cash flow, when you want to know your future. Right? When you doing them sorceries with your yard. And I will cut off from you off your carved images, and your pillars from among you. And ye shall bow down no more to the work of your hands. And I will root out your Asher's images from among you, and destroy your cities. And in the anger and wrath, I will execute vengeance on the nations that did not obey. So that's why he said, I would want all people to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. Because everybody got to repent. Because this is the whole point of it. Because if everybody don't repent, then guess what? Yahuwah's wrath stays. He said, and nobody go nowhere, right? Ode to Solomon chapter 15. Ode Shalom. We almost finished. We got 2 more slides. Ode to Solomon 15 and 1. Ode Shalom, Pseudepigrapha, volume 2, verse 1. As a man, as the sun is the joy to them who seek it at daybreak, so is Yahuwah, so is my joy Yahuwah, because he is my son, and his rays have restored me. And his light has diminished all darkness from my face. Eyes I have possessed in him, and I have seen his Chdsh day. Ears I have acquired, and I have heard his truth. The thought of knowledge I have acquired, and I have lived fully through them. I abandoned the way of error, and went toward him, and received salvation from him generously. He said, wow. Because you say you heard his truth. He said you receive salvation from him generously. So you look at the 11th month. So this is the 11th month. That's the Kaf, or the Kefa, what they call it. Kaf. Right? Alabith Gamadala who's in Katid Yad Kaf, Kefa. It means palm, right? It means palm, leaf. Productivity, fruitfulness, teaching, reproducing. Why? Because this is all a part of rain. This is part of the Shamash. The sun's getting closer now. The sun is getting ready to come. Springtime is approaching, right? We got too long. It means hollowed hand. He said, I received salvation from him generously. Powerful handful. Powerful handful. It also means spoon. It means hollow rock. It means to open. Right? If you see certain plants that require a lot of water, like banana plants or elephant ears, and you cut them in half, but then when it rains around this time, you see the sucker come out the middle of it and sticking his tongue out in the middle of it. It opens up to receive the rain because it's getting ready to grow coming up. And all this is all a part of it. Right? It means hand, hollow hand, right? Right? It's the book of Sirach 3:17-23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in meekness. It means business. Like, him with the bald head, he had a nice little business. But he sure wasn't meek, though. He knew. He went off on Dawood, right? He's supposed to went on his business and he knew. It was a business. It's a managerial role. Like, you're in a management role. So should I be beloved of him that is approved. How your household going to be approved? You who are going to look at your household and be like, somebody better do something. Abigail, somebody. Servants, somebody need to tell. Think about the servants ain't tell. Think about the servants. If the servants ain't tell, the servants ain't say nothing. Man, Dawood come to kill us. If the servants ain't say nothing to Abigail had to do something. Verse 18, the greater thou art, the more humble thyself. You rich? Nabal didn't humble himself, did he? He was great too. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Now you see why he ain't getting nothing. If he'd have did it, Yahuwah have mercy on me. I'm like, man, I'm a sinner, right? Nope, he didn't do it. Many are in high places of renown. You know how it was. He was real high up too. Man, you got a lot of subscribers. Matter of fact, you got a lot of people following you. You well known. Man, you well known for your railing. You well known for your slander, your gossip, and your lying. You well known for making up rumors, man. You well known for cursing other people too. But for some reason, I guess you forgot who you are. But mysteries, Anu, are revealed unto the Anu, the meek. For the power of Yahuwah is great. It's a powerful handful too. It's a powerful handful, cough. And it's honored with the lowly. That's what it's honored with. It ain't honored with no high-minded hypocrites. Because Yahuwah looks at us. He looks at us every day. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee. Right? Don't look at that. Don't seek for it. Neither search for things that are above thy strength. Right? That's way above your strength. Because if Dawood would have killed Nabal, it would have been above his strength, and Yahuwah would have destroyed him. And I assure you, he would have lost them wars and those battles in your life. Think about all the times you want to take people out. He like, man, look at him. There's a lot of people you want to take out. He like, I can't even do it. Because if I do it, I'm going to lose all my battles in my life. That's why a lot of people are in prison today. Because wisdom is better than jewels. And nothing shall be desired. And it can be compared with her, right? You should have had that hukmah. If you had that wisdom, you wouldn't have did it. Or somebody to stop you, male or female, it don't matter. Somebody stop me. Please, right? Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. So that's what you got to think about. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. It ain't needful. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men and women and children and Malachi understand. Because even the Malachi, all the Malachi that appeared to people when they hit the ground, they couldn't even understand it. Because even the Shalakim, whom Yahuwah chose, didn't even understand when the women came to them either. In the book of Mark, they didn't even understand it. So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. We look at the light of life. We look at the true light, which light every man and woman that comes into the bar, knowing that when you illuminate one on the inside, then one can take their rightful role as managers. That's Shamash rule by day and the Yard to rule by night. And he say, Mim Shalom, just like it was in the beginning. You go always be even back to the time when Adam was created. He formed Adam, both male and female, Zakar Nakabah. And he created Adam first, but then he made a Isha to help him, Ayshr, in the garden. But he said, because you know Ayshr means what? See, cut for the Rosh. That's what it means. Azar. See, cut, swart not wrestle our word perfection. He said, I seen this Shabbat day for the Rosh. Because these are all a part of it. As a helper in the gun. And then he said, when you seen all the sins that were being committed and all the transgression of the Torah, one has to step in. You know, because most people, the only thing they see is screaming and yelling at the bar and screaming. Not even that. All you gotta do is say it. Still small voice. And guess what? It just cut. It'll be like a rushing mighty wind. Matter of fact, it's stronger than an earthquake. Matter of fact, it's stronger than a rainstorm and a whirlwind. I assure you of that. And it can stop 400 men from killing somebody if you say it the correct way. I assure you of that. So we look at all these things that Yahushua Mashiach and the powers that he's given to other people and the understanding of what it means for a body to flow and not to have any muscle imbalances within. Matter of fact, we understand what it's like to see the feminine nature to bear fruit, even as the bear fruit and the fruits of the Ruach. For all these things are a part of our inward man and our inward being, and we should not neglect these things. And we should love it. He said, he that loveth himself, loveth his Ayshr, which means you love your fruit. The very same fruit that you bear, the fruits of the Ruach. So we look at everything that's happened and everything that's going to happen. We look at the love of Yahushua Mashiach when he convicts, when he shows our sin, knowing that we're trying to escape from Sheol and the abyss. The only way to do that is Shakah. It's to bow down and confess your sins, for we are broken pieces. And those broken pieces can only be put together by Yahuwah himself, by Yahushua Mashiach. And that's only through a continual offering of the sacrifice of halal, of praise, and tefillah, tahila, and also to speak truth to one another, and to walk in righteousness, and walk with pure hands, and pure feet, pure understanding, with a pure mind, with pure prayer, tahor prayer, and tahor intentions, and to call on Yahuwah with a tahor heart and mind, and imaginations, and a makashaba that's pleasing in his sight. So we look at all these things that happen, and the love and compassion that he extends to us with his kaf, and also with his yad. Even as you had the 10th month we just passed, which is his yad, then you go to the 11th month with his kaf, knowing that it's 1011, 1011. 1011. He say the algorithmic code of life. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The Ainu shall inherit the Eras.